I swear I don't know where the bombs are. Only the miners know that. Maybe this will loosen their tongue. Wah! No! Ah!
Bart?
Don't turn on that light!
Sorry, I just came to see how you were feeling.
Fine, just fine.
What are you writing here, a play?
No.
Yeah, cast of characters, Viceroy Fizzlebottom, a hardy cherub of a man.
Give me that. It's a work in progress.
Welcome to the Objective Secured podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 41, Work in Progress. We're going to be talking about some of the potential skills you can learn at Southern Hemisphere Open 2019. It might also help highlight, your own skill set and some opportunities you might have to learn some things that you hadn't considered before outside of show if you're obviously not able to attend this year.
Yeah, so while we are, I guess, eyeball deep in Southern Hemisphere Open planning, so it's kind of all we're thinking about at the moment. But we wanted to highlight that people don't become Golden Demon winning painters because they're born with that natural talent.
No, it's practice.
It's practice. And, wherever you're at the moment, well, it's practice, but there's also skills that you can learn as well.
That's what I mean. It sort of comes into practice at that stage.
Yes and no, because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So it's really important to have a look at, I say really important really often, and I'm really focusing on not saying really important.
You're
and we're 2 minutes in, and I've said it already.
It's not even 2 minutes.
I've lost my train of thought now, telling myself off. So I think that it's good to actually look at what we're doing and look at the community around us and find ways that we can actually increase skills in order to get better at something.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a whole host of talent in the West Australian community when it comes down to this hobby, whether it's tabletop gaming or specifically painting and building and crafting and sculpting. And the opportunity that we hope to present you for show is the chance to meet some of these really talented artists and learn from them. Mm-hmm. It's why we've got the workshops that we've got, and we're hopefully going to continue to grow those and offer more to the community. We've got some extra workshops this year where you're going to get a boatload of stuff as part of the workshop, because obviously we try and make sure that there's a really significant value there for everyone attending. Mm-hmm. The terrain workshop, which we'll talk about in a segment later in this episode, is like you basically get a board of terrain.
That depends on your depends on how you define a table's worth of terrain.
That is true, but
our definition is, if you do both of those workshops, you leave with a table worth of terrain. George, who is instructing that workshop, thinks
basically wants 3 times that.
Yeah. However, you would leave with the skills in order to build those terrain pieces, and so you could easily get his version of a full board of terrain.
That's true. But before we delve into the 2 segments today, because there are going to be 2 segments, we're going to talk with a guest, Michael from Games Workshop Joondalup, about the workshops that they've put together for this year's show, and some new entrants to that roster as well, which is really exciting. Yep. We're also going to be covering the hobbyist workshops that are coming along as well. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk very quickly about our trip to Brisbane, because this is now recorded after our whirlwind flight to Brisbane and Mount Gravatt and back again. Mm-hmm. If you've been living under a rock and don't know us, we were very fortunate and humbled to be nominated for the Waihama Heroes Awards for 2019 by members of our local community. And we have to thank everyone who did nominate us. And then we were able to get the nod from Games Workshop, as I think there's only 15 this year. They haven't announced any more.
Yeah, no, 15.
We're the first Australians to receive it. And we're 2 of the 3 in the Southern Hemisphere to have received it.
Yes.
With the only other person being a New Zealander by the name of Daniel Street, who has an Age of Sigmar focused podcast and website that he runs out of, I'm assuming the North Island of New Zealand. I've just made that up.
Why have you just made up that he's from the North Island of New
That's what I've
Zealand?
decided. We're hopefully going to be able to chat to Daniel in the future. We've reached out and hopefully we'll hear back from him so we can have him on our podcast to talk about what he does in the New Zealand community.
Yeah, so he was unable to make it to the awards ceremony at Mount Gravatt, but they spoke very Dom spoke very highly of him during the presentation and said that he's working really hard to kind of unite the Australian and New Zealand players.
Yeah, so congratulations to him.
Community. I should have said community, not players.
So yeah, we flew into Brisbane and we got a day's R&R prior to heading to Mount Gravatt on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And we left it later in the day because they were running the Warhammer Championships for Age of Sigmar and for Warhammer 40,000, so we got to see some of the games happening.
Got to see the very end of
round 3.
Day 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were greeted by Andrew and the staff at Mount Gravatt, who were all fantastic, very helpful, very approachable, much like the staff we have here in Western Australia. We're very fortunate for that in all of our stores here in WA. We also got to meet Dom, who was the representative from the Warhammer community there.
Mm-hmm.
And we also got to meet the head of Games Workshop Australia. And both of those were very complimentary with what we've been doing for the community, which was lovely to hear. And very keen to be more involved with what we were trying to achieve here in WA. So we got to go out to dinner with them after we saw the presentation that Dom presented at Mount Gravatt. All of those videos and photos went live about 10 minutes after we saw them. We weren't allowed to live. We were allowed to live stream for most of the time we were there. Like you did the walkthrough around the store, and there's a little clip. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll find the clip of the actual awards for us, which I've forgotten the gentleman's name who was sat beside me, but he was awesome. I sort of introduced myself.
Total stranger, by the way. Would you mind videoing?
Here's our camera. Would you mind holding this for 10 minutes?
2 minutes.
So that was really cool of him to do that. He was there for the previews. So
yeah.
And then once the previews were done, obviously once we were done, we had to turn the camera off so that they could do the previews.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to video the previews, and we weren't allowed to post any photos, because obviously any photos that we took of a projector going onto the back of a media wall was not going to be anywhere near as good quality as the high definition photos
and
that
even recording
they printed.
Yeah, and even
published.
recording the videos and audio that we would have gotten wouldn't have been anywhere near as good as the...
It wouldn't have been, but I think that the presentation that we got to experience was so much more than just seeing the photos.
Yeah, I'm hoping that... I mean, they had video cameras there for the whole thing, for our presentation and for that, and Dom was mic'd up, and I'm really hoping they actually do release that video, although the camera crew were a bit upset when all the lights got turned off and they couldn't see a thing.
Yeah, they were literally filming in the dark.
And so after the presentation, we headed off for dinner with the staff from Warhammer Mount Gravatt and Dom. And
it was the staff from Warhammer Queensland.
Yeah, there were definitely some other stores present. Yeah,
as many who were able to make it to that preview were there.
Yeah, so there must have been, Andrew and 2 staff. And then there
12
were
or 13 of us all.
Yeah, it was a really nice casual night. We did monopolise Dom's time a little bit.
It's one of the downsides with going to a very noisy restaurant where you're stretched out on a long, thin table. It's really quite difficult to hold conversations with everyone. You're sort of going, well, you're directly across from me, you're directly next to me. You're stuck with us.
This is my sphere of influence, yeah. So, that was a really fun afternoon. Emma's posted photos on the Facebook page, and I'll probably put them in the show notes for this episode, of the certificate, the T-shirt, and the medal that we got.
Oh, well, I might take a photo that's got yours in it as well. So, Eric...
So the show notes, I'm just lazy. I grabbed them off the Facebook page.
Eric did say, so only Emma got a certificate then. And if you know Mike, then it's going to be hard to believe, but his bundle of goodies was tucked under his arm and he was busily chatting away, so I couldn't get the different things from him to be able to photograph both certificates together, so I just did mine.
Watch the video, I do get one.
Yes.
Actually, we've got them set just over to the side here. I've got to try and get a couple of frames for them, I think, because they've been block mounted in like a, I don't know, I know there's the right word for it, for
It's just called a mount.
yeah. So they need
It's
to
not
go.
block mounted. It's just a mount.
They need to go on a frame anyway.
Right.
So they're otherwise going to get ruined.
Mm.
And yeah, then we flew back to Perth on Sunday afternoon, and that was sort of the whirlwind experience. We were hoping to get back out to Mount Gravatt on the Sunday, but between checkout and what else we had sort of planned, getting slightly lost with the GPS and
Yeah, a few times.
and whatnot. We didn't quite make it back, but we do really have to staff for being so welcoming out at Mount Gravatt. If you have the chance and you're in Brisbane at all, and you're a hobbyist, Upper Mount Gravatt is probably a 25-minute drive from the CBD, and it's really easy to get to.
There's parking and
Lots of restaurants and stuff around there as well. It's directly opposite the Westfield Garden City Shopping Centre.
Yes,
in
the
Mount Gravatt.
Queensland version of the Garden City Shopping Centre. But that store is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So it's so much bigger than any of the Games Workshop stores that we have here.
The only one we've been to that's like you would fit more in is actually Warhammer World.
Oh, well, yes, but that's a bit different. So this one it's got its regular store, but even the regular store would still be quite a few times bigger than most of the GW stores over here.
It'd be at least twice the size of Fremantle.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
Because they have the full range plus the extended range on shelf.
Yeah.
So, they had the things like the Drakari Razor Wing, Dark Reapers for the Eldar, and a whole bunch of stuff that's normally mail order only. They actually had those on the shelves, albeit in plain packaging, but they had the best sellers on the shelves. And they also had, Andrew was telling me that where all the blister packs were, at the very back of some of them, they didn't have enough racking for all the blisters because they got the extended range. So occasionally you'll find a model at the back that is mail order only. And they've still got I think it was 4 tables in that main space as well, that the most of the stores have, the demo for Age of Sigmar, the demo for 40k, and those sort of display tables for the store. And then
I can't remember how many tables there were. I know that there were at least 2.
No, there were definitely 4.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And then you go through their staff room was as big as Games Workshop Perth.
Yeah, it was.
It was huge.
It was sizey. But yeah, so they've split off their store from their actual gaming area.
Yep.
Or hobby area, sorry.
So when you go through, so you kind of have to go into the store and past the till. There's a big sign that talks about the rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say rules of engagement, talking about food and drinks and behaviour and that sort of thing.
Not leaving your rubbish lying around.
Yep. And then when you go in there's a big set of glass cabinets. Now, Andrew is an ex-Golden Demon winner.
Is it an ex-Golden Demon winner, or is he a past Golden winner?
Past is a better description.
I don't think he was stripped of his Golden Demon.
No, but it was really funny because I didn't realise, I didn't make the connection until you pointed it out, because I looked at those, there were 2 dioramas in there, and I went, oh, wow, like, that's cool to see. Like, I remember them being in White Dwarf. And then it took you saying, no, that's the store managers. And I went, oh, hang on a minute.
No, it took me saying that 6 times before you actually listened to what I was saying, and then went, oh.
So he's got a lot of his display stuff in there, which is great.
Yeah.
We also got to see the new trophies that are Forge World multi-part kits that they had to build.
And paint.
So behind those cabinets, you've got enough space for, I think it was 10 hobbyists to be painting, with lights and plenty of space for working and building and painting. And there were probably 4 or 5 still going when we got there. And then there's another set of cabinets for staff armies and...
No, actually, they're for customer armies.
Are they really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So they cycle through different players, different customers' armies, so that people can have their work on display and other people can check out what community is doing.
Maybe it was a case of one of the staff had, because when I asked the question, one of the staff had his army in there.
Oh, yeah, no, they'd all been taken out as part of, because they had to make room for a painting competition that they had,
okay.
and so they hadn't actually got the new armies back in there.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's why
the
majority of them were empty when we were actually in there.
And then they've got enough space for 16 6x4s. So...
16?
Yeah.
There weren't 16 there.
There were 16 6x4s there. 4 rows of 4.
I thought they had 12 in each.
Yeah, they didn't have... They only had 12 in each group. But they had... Yeah, 4 rows of 4.
Okay.
So, and the tables were done by... so they were all Realm of Battles.
Yes.
Most of them were the old style Realm of Battles, the kind of Rolling Hills Realm of Battle. There was, I think, 2 of the Sector Imperialis ones, and there were none of the new Age of Sigmar ones that I noticed. I could be wrong. But what was really interesting is that the staff all around Brisbane and Queensland essentially painted the terrain and the boards.
No, not the boards. The boards were all done by
The store?
by the Mount Gravatt store.
Yep.
And then the different stores around Brisbane all chipped in and painted the terrain for the actual grand tournament.
Yep.
To make sure that the terrain was
As good as it could be.
As good as it could be. And obviously, as we know, it is quite difficult trying to get all of the terrain built and painted in such a short amount of time, and many hands make light work, and they made the most of having all of their staff resources available. But he has enough terrain. I'm saying I guess Andrew was talking to me about it, so that's why. They have enough terrain that they can actually fill all of those boards with matching Age of Sigmar terrain. So each Age of Sigmar terrain matches the board that it would go on.
Yep.
Or have 40k terrain that would match the board that it would go on.
There's obviously things like the Sector Imperialis, which is obviously just 40k. And I would say that there was a board there which was really cool. It was using the Rolling Hills Realm of Battle, but it was an island they'd built, and then water affects the outside around the island, so that there was sort of an archipelago with like almost the neck of a river that leads out into the ocean, so that when you're playing on it, it's for the Ideneth Deepkin armies. So it's all shallow water. It doesn't change the game in any way, but it looks like, the sort of the edge of a beach, which looked really cool. They did a great job.
Yeah.
We saw a bunch of really lovely painted armies for both systems. Emma grabbed some photos of an Ultramarines army specifically that was the same army that won ARC over in Victoria for the best hobby and best display. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can get some photos up at some point once we get them off the camera.
Yeah.
It's a long list, and I must admit it's quite low on the list of things to do at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had a great time. We got to meet some awesome, wonderful people, and chatting to Dom from Warhammer Community. He's clearly used to being interrogated by gamers, because my best attempts at getting him to give me a straight answer on anything that wasn't in that presentation were
straight answer on anything, whether it was in the presentation or not. Like, he'd got 12 words that he was allowed to say about each photo, and they were the only words he said about each photo.
Yeah, he was very definitely sworn to secrecy, and I mean, obviously he gets to see things well in advance before we do, because they have to write the scripts and plan it all out. But he was very tight-lipped about me asking other questions about, when am I getting Plastic Aspect Warriors, and when am I getting the revised Space Marine Codex, and all those sorts of things. So, but it was lovely to chat to him, and get a couple of hours to hang out with the staff, and then fly home on the red eye again on Sunday night.
That was less lovely.
Yeah, it was.
Mm.
But we got back.
Mm.
And we got a couple of hours sleep, and then back into the real world again.
And by real world, do you mean show?
Well, I mean kids to start with, but yes. Anyway, so that's been our last couple of days. The previews were great. If you haven't checked them out yet, they're on the community page. We've got a bunch of stuff on Warcry, which is the new skirmish Age of Sigmar version. They've only shown 2 of the 2 starter warbands now, but there's still 4 other warbands they haven't shown yet. Mm-hmm. We saw the preview videos for the new Chaos Knight. Obviously, we haven't seen a model for it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked the question, are we going to get more than one variant? The response was, you saw the video. So, we don't know.
I actually haven't seen the preview photos floating around Facebook. I'm sure that they're absolutely everywhere. But the first question that I had I thought it was a little bit funny. The first question I had was when it said
Summer 2019.
I whispered to Mike, who's summer? And he's like, what do you mean, who's summer? They mean the season. I was like, yes, I know they mean the season, Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere. And he went, oh, good question.
And it wasn't just you. That was the first question he answered from someone else. And there were about 4 people in the room who went, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So that was, the answer to that is Northern Hemisphere summer, which is technically now.
Yeah. And what was interesting about that is when we were talking to him for dinner, he said that was a really great question that we just hadn't even considered, because we've never done one south of the equator before.
Yeah.
So hopefully it means we will get more releases in future, and it means that they can go away and maybe change the way they provide that information to the community.
Well, yeah, and that was kind of what he said was, is there any reason that we can't say a month? Why do we have to say a season?
Yeah.
But even qualifying it with Northern Hemisphere summer or Southern Hemisphere summer or something like that is useful.
And then the also the Mechanicus vehicle. We got the funny thing about the Mechanicus video that we got with the transport, it was the one that showed the absolute least, as in it didn't show or tell you anything, but it got them the biggest response in the store. Yeah. And I think it's because they're so willing to be a bit tongue-in-cheek and laugh at themselves and look at the questions from the community and engage in that dialogue now, because it was, you could tell that the answers in that video, if you go and watch it, it's on the community site. It's a Magos talking to an Archmagos requesting a transport for the Skitarii, and it feels like all of the responses as to why they should get a transport were written by the community, going, we need a transport because of this, we need a transport because of this, and every one of them's request denied, request denied, request denied, and then one of the last ones is, I'll stop bugging you.
Yeah.
Request confirmed. So that's been going on. That Skitarii book, the original Skitarii book, came out 6th edition.
Yeah.
So it's taken them 2 editions and what must be probably 6-7 years since that release. Maybe not that long, actually. It might be 5 years. But it means that we're finally getting a transport, which is cool. So yeah, it's go and check out the previews. They're on the Warhammer community page. Thank you again to everyone we met while we were in Brisbane for being so cool and awesome and accommodating and helpful and lovely. But we might take a quick break, and then we're going to start talking about some of the workshops and some of the skills you could learn at Southern Hemisphere Open in 2019. Hi, I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
And we are the team from Objective Secured.
We just wanted to take a minute to let you know what you can expect from our 3rd annual Southern Hemisphere Open this year at Claremont Showgrounds, June 1 to 3.
We've got tabletop games, tournaments, intro and demo games.
Yeah, we've got workshops, panels, role-playing games,
board games, painting competitions.
If you want to find out more, you can follow us at objectivesecured.com.au or Objective Secured on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.
Southern Hemisphere Open, 1-2-3 June, Claremont Showgrounds.
Happy gaming, everyone.
Okay, so we're going to start by exploring some of the cool workshops that are being run by local hobbyists independently. They approached us, or we approached them in some cases, because we see what they do in the community hobby-wise, and we're really invested in trying to give those people the opportunity to show off their skills and obviously impart them into new people within the community to improve everyone's hobby.
Yeah, and I will just start by saying that, again, each of these instructors is donating their time in order to share their skills. So all of the funds that we are charging go to materials and basically to cover costs.
Yeah.
So we have to say a huge thank you to those facilitators, hobbyists, amazing community members who give so freely of their time and skills in order to offer this.
So we've got 4 independent workshops happening this year, which is, I think we only had 1 last year. So the first one is on Saturday afternoon. Now, it is quite a long workshop.
It's Saturday morning to Saturday afternoon, so it is a long workshop, but there is a short break in the middle so people can go and get some fresh air and refresh and then come back to it.
Yep. So this is painting armour panels, and this is being hosted by MKV Paintworks.
Or you may know him better as Mark Van Aert.
Yes. So he's been a staple in the War Machine community for some time. He's also branched out and doing a bunch of stuff in Games Workshop with his Dark Angels these days. And this workshop's dedicated to glazing and blending. It's looking at how Zenith priming works and then getting it to a finished showcase. So it is a longer class because there is drying time involved with glazing and blending and whatnot. But the goal of this is to really take armor paneling particularly on things like Space Marines and Eldar vehicles, those nice big smooth flat spaces. It'd work really well on Gundams. It'd work really well on Warjacks and any of the big stuff that War Machine has to offer in that regard. So it's really about glazing and blending surfaces. And that, if you haven't done it before, wet blending is a skill all of its own. So Mark's been working really hard to get a workshop together that encapsulates all of those skills that he's learnt. and he's going to have essentially woe to go from prime to finish, which is exciting to do in about 5 hours once you include the break.
Yeah. So, I guess when you're looking at a model, what benefit do you think coming to this kind of workshop would give?
I think the best opportunity you get from this sort of thing, especially with wet blending and glazing, you're going to get more natural finishes to models. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that comes out is that getting a natural transition of light rather than hard edge highlights can be really difficult to make it look natural. And I think that while the edge highlighting process is really important, it's not necessarily a style that suits every game. It's definitely one that's featured heavily for Games Workshop, and the models look great when you do it like that.
I don't like it.
You don't like edge highlighting?
Not at all.
Well, there we go. There's a personal preference. If you head to the MKV Paintworks Facebook page, there's a link on the... if you click on the painting schedule on the show website, there's a link to Mark's Facebook page, and he's got 3 Dark Angels aggressors as the cover banner image, and you'll see exactly what I mean, where they are dark green, but they're also transitioned to where light would naturally land on them.
Yeah. And
it's a smooth transition. It's neat. It's clean. The funny thing is for me, because I'm used to seeing the Dark Angels done Games Workshop style, they don't. At first I went, they're not Dark Angels, but the more I've looked at them, the more I really like the natural transitions on them.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it would actually be like it was in real life. So, and especially around the gauntlets as well, the transition from red to black, without any distinct lines or, those sorts of skills take time and patience to learn. But Mark's giving up enough time that, you should easily be able to do that. He's also got some examples from War Machine on there, in white no less, which if you've ever tried to paint white robes or white armour, white's a pain in the butt. It's almost as bad as black.
White, black, yellow. Is there any colour that you guys do like painting?
Dark blue. He's also got some...
Hopefully they like dark green, because that's the colour palette that we're aiming for.
He's got plenty of photos on there in different colours. I mean, he's got... I can't think what they're... I think these are Cardor, actually, in blue.
Well, it says Cardor on it, so that would have been the giveaway for me.
But normally Signar are in blue normally for War Machine, which is what threw me, because I looked at the model and went, that's not a Signar Warjack. But I couldn't wrap my head around that, because they're normally red for Cardor. Anyway, so look, it's going to be a long workshop, but I think it's going to be well worthwhile, because it'll give you some of that wet blending stuff that is a more advanced technique.
Yeah, and it's certainly it has a huge impact compared to just block colours.
Yeah, and it's another toolbox skill you can add to your miniatures, and there's no reason why you can't finish with an edge highlight. And certainly in some cases, there's you can see on the aggressors around the top edges of their the cowls that there is very definite edges to them.
Yeah,
but I think the transition is less harsh. So this is certainly a skill that is well worth learning. And much like Dean's workshops, which we'll talk about in just a second, this is probably, you want to have the basics down to then come and do this sort of thing. You want to have a good understanding of the basic ways of applying paint and, having the right consistency of paints and that sort of thing, because Mark's going to turn that up to 11 in regards to glazing and blending, where it is all about transitioning and knowing the consistency of your paints and how to transition them. So,
but you don't need to be an award-winning painter in order to come. So having some of your basics down.
Yeah, if you did say, for example, the intro to Citadel in the morning.
Well, you can't, because he starts at 11:30.
Yeah, but isn't there one of the intro to Citadels before that?
I'm fairly sure that the intro to Citadel finishes at 12.
Oh, it does too. It's 12:30 it finishes.
Okay.
Do it for 2 hours and then run.
No. However, Mark is part of the
West Oz.
What is that group called? WA Mini Painting something or another.
And I'll get a link and chuck it in the show notes.
Well,
there's going to be a lot of links in this episode if I remember them all.
There is a link to his Facebook page on as you said, on the list of the workshops. But so chatting to Mark through either one of those avenues, just, talk to him about whether or not this is an okay workshop for you, depending on where your skill level is, if you're not sure.
Yeah. And honestly, I think even if you, like I say, if you've got a basic understanding of applying paint, and even if you have only just got the basics down, the opportunity to learn wet blending, just to do things like magic swords or power weapons for 40k, to help you transition more organic shapes like cloaks. Cloaks are a really great way to learn how to wet blend with, because the shape of the model helps you determine where those transitions needs to be.
Yeah.
You can also hide some of the less good transitions in the folds of a cape. So it's definitely one that, as long as you've got the basics down, you should be fine for. But if you've got any questions, like Emma says, hit Mark up on his Facebook page, and I'm sure he'll be happy to talk to you and make sure that you're comfortable with coming. It is only happening on the Saturday.
It is, and there is...
That's partly because he's playing stuff for the weekend.
Actually, he's playing on the Sunday, and he's volunteering on the Monday to help with the swap meet.
Oh, awesome.
That we haven't necessarily spoken about yet. So we really need to get on to telling people about that. Otherwise, it's going to make Mark's job very easy at that.
And boring.
It'll be Mark and Marcus at the swap meet.
So we're going to move on now.
I was just going to say, part of the West Aussie mini painting group, there is a couple that are in there. And, well, I'm sure that there are many couples that are in there, and they're arguing over who gets to do Mark's workshop and trying to work out who's going to look after the kids while they go to the different workshops and trying to take it in turns, which is really awesome to see.
Definitely. So we're going to talk now. We've got 2 DIY terrain workshops that are happening, one Sunday morning, one Sunday afternoon. So you can do a full day of terrain building.
Yes, and
George is insane.
George is absolutely wonderful.
He is, but he's bonkers.
In the intro, we did say about how if you do both workshops, then in our opinion, you'll come out with effectively a full table worth of terrain. And then we also joked and said, however, in George's opinion, you'll come out with about a third of a table of terrain. And George, Michael and Steve are both also doing a terrain panel on the Saturday, so that you're able to come and hear about those different opinions between terrain dense boards and then Michael's version of tournament terrain boards.
Yep.
And then Steve's going to be talking about how terrain impacts narrative games as well. So if you're interested in terrain, then you can come and hear about it on the Saturday and then make it on the Sunday.
Yeah. So again, it's like all the other workshops where everything's supplied and you get to take stuff home at the end of.
Yes, you do.
So the first workshop focuses on, both of them really focus on building terrain the cheap way. The old-fashioned way, I suppose, is the way I look at it, because, these days you're quite spoiled for choice with MDF and plastic terrain and 3D print and all the rest of it. This is doing it yourself.
Yeah, and while this is actually, it can be a cost-effective way to build terrain. However, I think George's wife would possibly
It's because of
argue
the volume.
Exactly.
That's a quantity issue, not a quality issue.
Exactly. No, it can definitely be a quantity issue, and it can be addictive. But for some people, building terrain, they find great pleasure in it and great joy. And so actually creating something, like creating large rocky outcrops from foam, gives them a much higher sense of satisfaction than going and purchasing
A resin one or a 3D printed one or whatever. Yeah.
So this is, I guess not only is it a cost-effective way to get a table full of terrain, but it's also another aspect of the hobby that different people enjoy.
Yeah.
So just because you don't enjoy it doesn't mean that the only reason that people would do this is because it's a cheap way to get terrain.
No, I never said it was.
That's how it sounded.
Well, that's your take. You're putting words in my mouth. That's implication. That's your implication, not mine.
I am just clarifying in case people who are listening think you're suggesting they're cheap.
No. I'm suggesting that this is a great way to make natural looking, unique terrain.
Yeah, and George's terrain is absolutely fantastic, and nothing that he has ever built that I have seen, and I will qualify with that I have seen, looks like it's made from the inside of a toilet paper.
No, not yet. I'm sure he's got a use for them.
Well, and perhaps when he started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I must admit, I have kind of thought about getting piles of toilet rolls and spraying them silver for apocalypse games, with trying to get all the Titans on the table and getting some bigger scale terrain. But yeah, that's not going to happen. And that's not the kind of DIY terrain
No.
that he will be building.
So this looks at, the first one looks at building a forest, large rocky outcroppings, a river, and a lake/pond.
Yeah.
And I really like the diversity here because there's something there that's useful for pretty much every game system I can think
Yes.
of, with the exception of things like Space Battle-esque games.
Yeah.
And
I
even
think
rocky outcroppings if you're going to put asteroid belts down or...
I mean, I'm thinking if you play X-Wing, maybe it's not going to be...
Yeah, look, you'd have to be not a non-competitive game of X-Wing. You could make your own asteroids and that sort of thing. And then the second one looks at hills, boulders, ruins, and then potentially some walls, depending on how the workshop plays through in terms of time. So you're going to walk away with, what's that, like 7 or 8 pieces of terrain minimum?
No, it's actually more than that. The intention is that, so where George has written hills, when he actually sent the information to me, he actually had that there's going to be multiple hills and these will be the sizes that they are.
Oh, cool.
So, the hills and the boulders and even the buildings, there's multiples of them. But I didn't want to put that down because it does actually depend on how fast the people are that are in the room. So you may end up leaving with 1 hill or you may end up leaving with 3.
Yeah.
Because obviously George has been doing this for a long time. He can do them somewhat
Rapidly.
faster.
Yeah.
For some people, it may take them a little bit longer, that kind of thing. So there is a decent amount of terrain that people are going to go home with, and they even go home with all of their terrain in a box.
So they're actually getting a box as well to
Storage
store it
as
all.
well. Yeah.
Wow, I was about to
George
say
has
you'll have
thought
to
of
remember one.
everything.
Yeah.
Because we're not allowed to give out plastic bags anymore,
No.
so instead we're giving out boxes.
So you'll also have to, depending on how it goes, and I'm sure George will play this by ear on the day, if stuff isn't dry when you want to take it home, you might, if you're coming the next day, you'll probably be able to pick it up the next day.
That is true. However, as I said, George has thought of everything. So the reason that there are multiple things being built is that things that need to
Drying
glue
time.
and dry will be built first, and then while they're drying, moving on to something that just needs to be cut or so
moving in between the projects.
that's exactly it. So the plan is that by the end of the workshops, they should actually be dry and good to go.
Well, look, obviously we'll try and accommodate it on the day if stuff isn't quite dry and you're coming back the next day. There's no reason why we can't work something out with you to leave it somewhere
Definitely.
safe.
Yep.
So yeah, if you want to put together your own full table of terrain in a day, come out and do both of George's workshops, all the materials included.
Now, I will add that these workshops are 3.5 hours long, which is the time that it will take to build this terrain. The intention was that all of the terrain would be built in one workshop and then all of the terrain would be painted in another workshop. And then when we kind of had a big chat about it, we realised that was really not very realistic. So the terrain won't be painted, so that you'll have to kind of do that at home. But George will have some...
Well, it's a good thing we've got another workshop that talks about painting terrain.
I'm not sure if it's happening at the same time.
Is it happening at the same time?
It might be.
Oh, it is too.
Yeah, it's a shame that, actually.
Oh.
Bad planning.
It is what it is now. It's too
It
late.
is. Yep, definitely.
But no, it's a great way to get yourself into exploring new ways of building terrain for your tabletops, for whatever game system you happen to play.
Yes.
The last one, which I've deliberately saved until last, is...
That, and it was at the bottom of the page.
Well, I was going to start with this, and then I changed my mind.
Okay.
So this is being done by Play by Proxy and I can never say the second one.
Sardawan's
Foundry. Troy and Charlie.
So Troy is obviously he runs Sardawan's Foundry, and he also co-owns Play by Proxy with Charlie.
Okay, so
Just to clarify that.
if you were at show last year, you would have seen Troy walking around as a giant Ultramarines Primaris sergeant.
And if you were at show in 2017, Troy was actually there working on the Gundam store, helping
Yes.
the different people build the Gundam models. So he's been basically at all of our shows.
Yes. So this time he's a cosplay genius. He's building Buzz Lightyear at the moment, a wearable with wings that open and everything.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know if he's going to do the glass dome over his own head. That'll be entertaining. But his Space Marine suit has vents and air conditioning inside the suit, so he can walk around in it for longer periods of time. And there's a lot of thought and care gone into that project. So the two guys are going to offer a glimpse into that world of cosplay,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be able to build your very own Imperial Guardsman helmet.
Yes.
So we're talking about, my understanding is it's the Cadian style the classic Imperial Guardsman helmet.
Did you just make that up, or did you actually talk to Troy about that?
Well, this is coming from you. You told me it was the Imperial Guardsman helmet, and the only models that have helmets, the Imperial Guard, in the range are the Cadians.
Okay, I told you it was a guardsman helmet. That's all I said.
Okay, well, that's my understanding of it. What is it?
It's a guardsman helmet. Everything that is written on that page is the information that I have.
Fair enough.
Guardsman helmet.
In any case, you're making a cool helmet.
Yes.
You're going to get to take it home. It does very specifically say you'll have to pick it up after the workshop, as in at least 24 hours later, so Sunday or Monday, because this is happening first thing Saturday morning. And it's going to run for about 3.5 hours to do it. But if you've ever been interested in cosplay, this will give you some fundamental tools and information, and you obviously get a chance to pick Troy and Charlie's brains around, if you wanted to go further and do more extensive cosplay, this is a great way to start doing something that's practical that you can learn the basics with, and then let your imagination go and start building really cool, fancy suits and all sorts of things. And it can tie into going and doing live action roleplay. You can start doing stuff like Troy does, which is full body armor, wearable, stilted costumes that let you walk around as a Space Marine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really exciting to be able to... It's something that's always intrigued me, but I wouldn't even know where to start with that sort of thing. So it's great to have a couple of local community members who clearly know what they're doing. If you've seen Troy Space Marine, head over to Sardoin's Foundry on the Facebook page, and you can see photos. He had some new photos done in that suit, professional ones done.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they actually do the armor justice, which is great. But even stood there talking to him, looking literally up at him, because he's got 8 inches of height in those boots that he wears, and he's already taller than me. Finding out just some of the tips and tricks around some of the basic stuff that you'd never think of until you got to that part in the project.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to, if you want to get involved in cosplay, this is a great way to dip your toe in the water without too much risk, and you're going to get something at the end of it that you've done yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Saturday morning, 9 till 12:30. So they're the 4 workshops that we've got being done independent of, or individually supported, I should say.
Yeah, now there are other workshops that we are really pushing to the last minute to get listed.
Yes.
But as we
At
are
time of
still
recording.
pushing to the last minute to get listed, we won't talk about them, but we might do a supplementary episode. What episode is this?
41.
Episode 41A with a bit of information on what that is. Or, yeah.
Yeah, so we really have to thank all 4 of these people, Mark, Troy, Charlie, and George, for giving up their time and offering their services out to the community to give them more opportunities to learn stuff about our hobby or hobbies.
Well, it's all the different elements of the different hobby, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, if you look at it this way, you can build yourself a display board using George's skills.
Mm-hmm.
You can make the display board and your army look awesome with Mark's information.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can make yourself a cool costume to come and get those hobby points for tournaments.
Oh, yeah. We've never had anyone go that far.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a huge step to take to get an extra 1 point on your painting score sheet. But
I would give him the 3. He would get 3 for that space. If he can play a game in it, he'd get a max score if he could actually play a game and pick up dice with those gauntlets on. But we have had over the years the sort of a tongue-in-cheek attempt at costume. Well, if you're playing the Astra Militarum and you make yourself your own helmet, and then you might pick Troy's brain and try and figure out how to build a las gun and maybe a flak vest, and you can rock up as a guardsman. I would certainly give you points for that in theme, but all 4 workshops are useful for every aspect of the hobby, whether it's a narrative terrain that you're trying to do with really beautiful terrain, whether it's the competitive side and you need to get the best out of your painting to get your best scores, or anything in between. So,
or if you just think it's fun.
Yeah. And that's what we should be doing this hobby for. If
That's
you're not
it.
having fun,
Well,
probably
you're
time for a
doing
break.
something wrong, yeah.
Anyway, so that's the 4 independent workshops that are running. If you've got any questions, you can head on to the Objective Secured website and then click the link to Southern Hemisphere Open. And then there's a bunch of tabs and...
it's the What's On tab and then hit painting.
Yes, so the What's On at show, if you hover over that, there's a painting and workshops, and you can scroll down. There's a big sort of schedule listed, and if you click on the schedule, it'll open up the details for what each of the workshops includes and covers.
So because people were struggling to find it when I just had the big button that said download full descriptions of the workshops here, not only is the green button still there that says download full descriptions of the workshops here, there's also a line above it that says click for a full list of
Which says
description.
click on the timetable for full description of the workshops, and you can click on that sentence as well.
Yeah. It's almost a point of click anywhere and it'll take you to that list.
You've also got the buy tickets buttons on this and every other page.
Yes, people
big
still
green
struggle to
ones.
find those too.
So, and you can also scroll further down and check out some of the bios and stuff that we've got for some of the artists. We've got a couple still to go in, but I particularly love Shane's photo. If you want to go and check that out, we'll talk about his workshop in a second though, because we're going to have our guest on for this episode.
Yes.
So we'll take a quick break now, and then we'll get Michael on to talk about the extensive range of workshops available from Games Workshop. Right, so on to the main topic for tonight's episode. We're going to be talking with Michael from Games Workshop in Joondalup. How you going, Mike?
Very, very well. How about you guys? How are you doing?
Yeah, good. It's lovely to have you chatting with us today as we're about to talk about the workshops that you are organising for Southern Hemisphere Open.
Yeah, it's always great to have guests on, and obviously we're doing this remotely with Mike from his hole in the wall somewhere up in the northern suburbs, a long way from us.
That's it. It's a fair way up, but we managed to use the appropriate runes and communicate back now and again, so it's good.
Yeah, so anyone listening to this, if there is any interference, I'll do my best in the post to try and clean up and sort up any sound qualities, but this is Skype, and if you've used it for this sort of thing before, you'll know it's never perfect, so we'll do our best. But the content should be grade A. So...
but no pressure there, Michael.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, it's definitely quite exciting. I'm actually really pleased you guys have given us a chance to talk through this, because I know we've discussed it at length.
Yes.
But the WA team, we're so pumped for this year. So thank you for letting us jump on and sort of talk about what we've got planned.
No, we're excited
Always happy to have you on. So, what we're going to do is basically cover the workshops that are being run by Michael and his team. Mm-hmm. And we're going to look at sort of the skill sets that and some of the, I suppose, the appropriate sort of hobbyists that should attend some of these as well, because we do have quite advanced classes this year.
Before we do that, I am just going to jump in, because for people who are listening to this, they're probably not aware that for the last 2 years, we've obviously had some Games Workshop involvement as far as the painting workshops.
Yep.
And they have been organised by Rye, which has been absolutely fantastic. And this year we started that process with Rye again. And then he's abandoned our state and headed over to Sydney now. And Michael, we are
I put a complaint in with Lorna about that, so
yeah,
that's okay.
Definitely. But we're so appreciative of you jumping in and helping to organise these. And
yeah.
I don't think that people kind of get the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes in order to put these workshops together. So I just wanted to take just a minute to say thank you so much for everything that you have done. And when Mike's talking about, you and the team, really, we just know that you've been spearheading this. But
yeah, absolutely.
The support from all of the GW staff and Warhammer staff to be able to be here for the
and
third
ex-staff
year.
as well this year.
And ex-staff is so appreciated. Appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
No, I do appreciate it, guys. The thing is, obviously, I know how much... Well, I now have a much better understanding of how much work you both put in, and it's been insane. on our end, but at the same time, it's really, really rewarding because what you guys have done is amazing, and you've led the charge. Rye did such a brilliant job of setting it up, and all I've had to do is sort of take that, as you say, spearhead it. But I've got the best team with me, and we're all sort of taking our part and absolutely working to make it as good as we can. So I do appreciate that. But yes, definitely a team effort. I don't envy you two.
No, neither do we.
It's been a fair few late nights on my end. I can imagine that you don't actually sleep. I'm
No.
assuming you have some sort of crisis pod.
That's
and
exactly
just,
it. Plug
half an hour
ourselves in
sleep,
every
that's it.
hour.
If you listen to the episode on show, you'll have heard that only one of us is allowed to have a crisis at any given moment. So when one of us has a little moment of hysteria, it's the other's job to not.
That's it. We tag in
So-
on that.
That's it. That's a good idea. It's a good teamwork.
Yeah.
It's a good teamwork.
Only one mental breakdown at a time.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah. All right. So I guess one of the important things that I wanted to start off by pointing out is that while these are being supported by Games Workshop, they're not by any means only for people who play Games Workshop games.
Yeah, that's it. It's our community is amazing in Western Australia, and we're really fortunate that we have so many people that get involved in so many different aspects of the wider hobbies. And so we've designed this, and I'm quite intent on myself and making sure that anybody can come along to this. And we've tried to make sure it's as open as possible to as many people as possible as well. So I welcome anybody from any sort of hobby interest to have a look at these and come and get involved and really take those skill sets that we're going to teach you and make sure that you leave with and apply that to whatever other sort of hobby interests you have as well.
Yeah. And
Well, the painting's come a long way. I mean, I suppose the hobby has come a long way for the more greying members of the community like myself. And the fact that obviously as we all change through the hobby, we will focus on different aspects, and ultimately painting is a fundamental part of any of these, 95% of these hobbies.
yeah.
So having the range of knowledge and experience that we have access to in 2019 compared to 1989 when I started,
yeah.
and then having the range of tools and things and the people who know how to use them is something that I feel like anyone in the hobby community can leverage, because you don't have to, like you say, it's all of the skills are transferable, and all the models and the paints and everything like that will give you a greater understanding of whatever it is you're choosing to paint or model.
And I know that Mike posted a photo on the OBSEC page of the models that our son painted recently.
Yeah, the Salamanders Primaris.
Yes, and Mike's mum actually commented on it and said, "Oh, he did a much better job than Michael did with his first models." And I thought, yeah, but Michael was painting with household emulsion at the time.
It was they were the old Humbrol enamels back then.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. I did see the picture though. It looked fantastic. An excellent choice of Legion as well. It's not the Space Wolves. So we've got work to do, but I think Salamanders are definitely a very good second choice. I like it.
We have to give a quick shout out to Sarah down at Baldivis, who when he said he was actually interested in learning how to paint Games Workshop models, he's done a little bit of Gunpla and sort of third-party model kits and things like that, and he's a Lego fanatic. But when he asked me, he was actually interested in building and painting some stuff. I thought rather than it would have been very easy for me just to teach him my way, but the experience and knowledge and the processes that are now available in stores are really good for new hobbyists, and I wanted him to experience that I never got. So we took him down to the Warhammer Baldivis store. Sarah gave him a really good painting lesson. He came over with an ultramarine, and the first thing he said was, "I don't want to paint them blue." So he's about, what's he done? He's done a lieutenant, 5 intercessors. He's on his next 5 intercessors now, and then he's got an ancient and got a budding little army there, which is really cool. So
marvelous, fantastic, and that's the thing is as well as Sarah is so good at being able to break down the different ways that people learn. If you've ever checked out her Facebook page, and obviously you guys have been to the store, like it's just awesome seeing what she's doing. And so I'm glad he got his first sort of painting sessions in there. It sounds like he's a bit of a machine as well.
I just didn't want to colour him with my bad habits, because I have plenty of bad painting habits.
Or just bad habits. I don't think you needed to add painting.
Thanks. But I suppose for someone like Lachlan, who is just kind of biting into the cherry that is Games Workshop hobby,
Or any kind of modelling hobby.
the first workshop we want to talk about is the introduction to the Citadel paint system. And that kind of is where he probably sits best at the moment, based on, obviously, the discussions we've had. So it talks about why you would use the paint range in a specific order and how to apply them with the right sort of knowledge to get the results that you're after.
Yeah, that's it. And the biggest thing about introduction to Citadel paint system is a lot of the time the Citadel paint system itself is a word that we use, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in the store, and a lot of people go, "Oh, I base it with this, shade it with that, layer it with that," and that's correct in a way. And there's also, we have our dry brushing and edge highlighting and all sorts of other fun words. The thing is that breaking it down, there's actually a really specific reason that we have set up the Citadel paint system like we have, and moving through basing, shading, layering, understanding why we do that. That's a very big part for somebody who's new to our hobby or has begun their journey on the hobby and needs to learn those next essential skills. It's why we do what we do, and then how, and applying that. So Intro to Citadel paint system is going to provide not only the context but also the practical knowledge, and then you'll be leaving with an example of what you've done and the skills to then repeat that after that as well.
Yeah, so I think when this was a workshop that was offered last year, and
it was the most popular, wasn't it?
It was the most popular, which is why I think we've got it running 6 times over show this year,
Good.
to make sure that nobody misses out, because we did have quite a few disappointed people last year. But I think when I saw the name Introduction to Citadel Paint System, I kind of had this idea that whoever was running it was going to sit down and go, these are the paints. And this is the difference between, oh my goodness, now I can't think of the right words.
There's a pile of paints sat right here beside me.
Oh, it's all right, I remember it now. This is the difference between, paints and washes and that kind of thing, which really, there's so much more in it than just, look at the colours that we've got. Aren't they pretty?
For the more veteran hobbyists, there is even still value in this, because the paint range has changed so significantly over particularly the last probably 5 years. But, I mean, for someone like me, I've seen it change a dozen times in the last 2.5 decades. The fact that the range now gives you sort of pre-built glazes, pre-built washes, the right mediums to mix and change paints.
Oh, so you remember all the different ones.
Yeah, yeah.
I just had a total mental blank.
I mean, I remember when foundation paints were first introduced, and they became sort of a revolution, and now they're the base paints, which are a much broader range of products with better coverage and so on. I think even older hobbyists who paint, whatever they've chosen models are, can gain something out of this, because it does give you access to an entire paint range that you probably aren't as familiar with as you think you are. You might know the name, you might know that Mephiston Red or Corn Red or Abaddon Black are the equivalent of X, Y, and Z colours from the range from 2005 or from another company. But the fact is that the way they're applied could be very different to whatever those equivalent colours are. So
that's it, and that's the interesting thing as well, is the fact that it's a good point you mentioned actually, Mike, about the fact that you will have people who have been painting potentially for many
decades,
years, but have never quite moved forward, never quite necessarily had that opportunity to sit down and learn. And so in the last 7 years I've been in the Joondalup store, I've had plenty of people come through that go, oh yeah, I've painted a little bit, but I'm not too confident. And we'll sit down, and they've never had that sort of basis of knowledge, just because it's not necessarily something that we all pursue. I certainly started my journey more focused on winning all the games of games rather than necessarily how to apply the paints properly. So it's definitely for new hobbyists and for people that really want to begin that journey fresh. Really, it's fantastic for anybody of that nature. So.
But I also think that you don't know what you don't know. So even skilled painters who are doing incredible things could potentially come along to something like this and still be able to pick something up or refine a skill or potentially break a bad habit, like not licking paintbrushes.
No, that's with me.
Yes,
that's
forever.
not going anywhere. My question was, obviously with the technical range now part of the main paint system, are you going to be covering any of that in the intro paint system process?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that Stuart Knox, who's obviously many of us are familiar with in the WA community, he's worked for Games Workshop for many, many years. He will be running these sessions. So the first thing about Stu is that he not only understands how this paint system works inherently and uses it in many different ways to get a result. He actually has taught many people across different eras of their hobby. So one thing that we first spoke about with the new paint range when it was re-released most recently was Stuart actually took me through how to use Lamy and medium to improve my painting. And I actually make sure every hobbyist who comes through my store may be a little bit sick and tired of me hearing it, but I do make sure everyone knows that lime and medium really is the best way to use that. Why? And that's one of the things and those sorts of questions with those technical paints that we're going to cover as well. So.
Even things like the oxide paint, Blood for the Blood God, a lot of those sorts of a lot of people like to have a little bit of blood splatter and a little bit of that sort of oxidization on metals and all those sorts of little tricky realism touches, I suppose, are the best way I can think of describing them. A lot of people are very unfamiliar with how to apply those things, and I think starting to talk about those in this workshop is a really positive thing for those people looking to add a little bit more.
And for people who are looking to just get started, how to actually apply two thin coats. No, you're laughing.
Yes,
you're
true.
laughing,
Well,
and
it's
I
kind
know
of a
that
meme.
I get it, but. How do you water down the paint?
Yeah.
Which brings back to what you were saying just a minute ago.
With the medium and
with
whatnot.
the medium.
Yeah, that's it. And that's one of the biggest things. I actually had 3 people on Sunday who came through who were really struggling with their painting. And I looked at it and went, everything you're doing is correct. It's just that one element of controlling that paint. How do we actually set that up? And as I say, I learned that myself from Stu. And he'll be running through that across it. Plus, that's the thing as well. You guys mentioned that realism effect as well.
Yeah.
Talking through the paint system, if you have this, if you understand this process, if you understand how we get from basing to shading to layers, everything you want to pursue after that with your painting is made fantastic because your foundation's excellent. You've got all those essential skills. After that, you get to pursue wherever you like, and that's the exciting part about it.
Yeah, look, I mean, the other thing to mention very briefly before we talk about the next one, because I am conscious that
we've managed to pick up a lot of time.
There's a lot of time just in the first one.
We'll get faster probably.
So there's 3 brushes in this from memory. There's a base brush, medium shade, and a layer brush included that you get to take away from the workshop as part of the ticket price, and you obviously get the miniature to paint. All the paints and everything is supplied. So
these are really, really well-priced workshops.
Yeah, essentially... We're very fortunate that you're essentially coming along getting a free miniature. The paintbrushes and the equipment alone would be the equivalent of the ticket price, let alone the time and experience from Stu. So there's 2 workshops each day, Saturday, Sunday and Monday. There's a morning session and an afternoon session. And we'll make sure there's links in the show notes to the full schedule of the painting workshops as well as ticket links as well. The only other suggestion, and I'll put this in here with this particular session rather than the others because it kind of applies to all of the others, is the painting handle. Now, the painting handle was released about a year ago, or is it longer than that?
I think it's
I
longer
think a little
than
bit
that.
longer, yeah.
I don't know, I'm old.
Time flies.
My painting handle's been stolen by my kids.
Yep, that happens.
So it is a recommendation for most of these workshops to bring a handle, and there will be handles available for purchase from the Games Workshop booth at show.
And I did ask all the women at work that if they can save their wine corks for us, then that would be much appreciated if people don't have them and choose not to.
Look, honestly, the painting handles are one that we certainly would suggest people bring along if they have them, or if they've ever thought about getting one, go and grab one from the booth because it's a weird one for me as a old dog new tricks type thing. I really struggle with the painting handle, but Lachlan loves it. And
it's one of those interesting things actually because we have that in the store all the time. It's why I'm making sure we've brought so many to the booth we've got this year in case, like you say, people do need to get one or want to get one afterwards. And we'll have a couple of examples there as well to use. It's now something got to the point where I didn't really necessarily think I was going to use it, and I was like, oh, I'll try it out, part of the job. And now if I try to paint without it, I just feel like I'm doing something wrong and my hands shake. I get into nervous sweat. It's terrible. So yeah, they are definitely fantastic tools, so we'll definitely go through how to use those as well.
And that's kind of what I was hinting at with this workshop is just something as easy as how to be able to handle it and settle yourself at the table while using this thing for some of the more longer in the teeth players. It's something that I use it predominantly when I'm doing single miniatures, but how to quickly change miniatures over with it and get the best out of it, I think, is something that is quite a valuable thing to pick up if you haven't used one before.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, conscious of the time, so we don't keep you for like hours and hours and hours.
All good.
We're going to move on to Army Artistry, which is happening on Saturday morning, day 1. And this focuses on, I suppose, a few more advanced techniques. This is probably an intermediate class in my mind.
Yeah, that's it. So one of the things with this particular workshop that we're doing is we want to make sure that those hobbyists that really are looking to improve their skills, both for two things here. This is designed for those hobbyists that want to create a beautiful collection of miniatures that each individual model really brings out the flavor and character of the individual warrior represented, and then it supports the better image of the collection as a whole. And then we've also got the other aspect, which is focusing on the individual miniature and really making sure all those details that you want to bring out are appropriately not only picked out, but more specifically, really making sure that they are defined and understanding what makes, when you see a gem on a miniature, when you see a particular type of robe, when you see a weapon, when you just go, that looks so cool.
Yeah.
How do we get to that? And it's fantastic. Well, obviously a lot of people at Object Secured events, myself included, we want to represent our armies to get the extra painting score.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I always love is seeing those armies where I can look at the mass and go, my goodness, that looks so amazing and so inspiring. It looks like it's walked out the artwork. But at the same time, you look down, you can see the general's got his sword hilt with the embellishments all picked out, and there may be faces and eyes, and it's that. And it's also when you see like Best in the West, and you see other individual efforts, really making sure that all the things that make a miniature look alive and look real and immerse us in these amazing worlds are brought out.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Best in the West. Like, I think what is good about these is that we're not necessarily suggesting that this is something that you come to so that you can win painting competitions.
No, this is to make your army look the best you possibly can.
Exactly. So the only person that you need to be better than is yourself. Like when you walk out of that workshop, we're hoping that you're a better painter than when you walked in.
Yeah.
And so
That's it.
offering some skills in order so that people can make incremental changes and
then go back to older models and make them pop a little bit more. And the miniature that you guys have actually chosen for this, which are the I'm going to try and say this right now, Namarti Thralls. Have I said that right?
Perfect. It's Elvish, so it's fine.
Which are from the Ideneth Deepkin range from Age of Sigmar. The fact that you've got so many varied textures and opportunities on this model to show off some of these sort of techniques. You've got the sort of the ridged armor, you've got the cool sort of bladey things, you've got robes, you've got hair, you've got a whole bunch of skin to paint and practice with as well.
Absolutely, that's it. And that's actually a really important point as well, is the fact that these models, we're so lucky that the models are so beautifully sculpted that we can just pick up these details.
Yeah.
I suppose when you guys are right, and what you said, Emma, as well, it's the only person you've got to be better than is yourself. We chose these miniatures because people look at them and go, oh, they'd be quite challenging. And they are. They're a fantastic challenge and a fun challenge. But the reason they look so good when they're done is because they give you every opportunity to make them look real and amazing. And that's what we're teaching you to do, basically. How to take those opportunities. So. Yeah,
and they're a really clever choice for the workshop as well, because they are so varied and so interesting that... and you obviously get to take the one that you've completed home along with the extra brushes and bits and pieces that are provided with the workshop. Even if you don't collect this army, it's a great reference point for you to go back and apply those techniques to another army, because they are so varied in the textures. Although I have to ask, are you going to put all the little fishes and the basing extras and stuff that come with the kit out for them?
Well, that's the thing. This is the best part about this, is we have Ghislaine, who is an amazing painter and been involved in our Morley store for a while now.
Yes.
She's coming back to the team to help us run this, and not help us run this. She is running this herself. So I will leave that up to her mighty wisdom. So I definitely, the best part is that if you do get this model, and and you do have any of the fish at all on it, there's nothing more enjoyable than painting the small fish, just personally, because they're so colourful and they're just small fish. It's wonderful.
I think you might need to get out more often.
I do. I really do. It's difficult being up here in the cold of the north.
That's
right. Down to the big smoke at some point.
Well, winter is coming, as they say. Oh, it's just come.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
We're going to move on. I'm sure there's copyright infringements I've just broken, but we'll move on. So the next one we'll talk about is the first of Dean's workshops. Now, for those of you listening who don't know who we're referencing when I've said Dean's name a couple of times, his name's Dean Lecoq. He is a Golden Demon winner. He won, was it last year's Squad's Demon?
Yep.
With his Militarum Tempestus Command Squad.
Yes, in the UK.
Amazing.
I took some photos on my phone and then looked at them afterwards and went, how the hell is a 12 megapixel camera not good enough to capture how intricate these models are?
Yeah.
Really stunning painter, and the workshops are certainly. I think everyone will get something out of these workshops, but obviously the first of these workshops, which is called Bringing Miniatures to Life. These are a high-end workshop that are designed for really pushing your skills and giving you some really advanced techniques.
So that to me makes it sound like it is aimed for people who are.
No. I think anyone can get something out of these workshops.
Well, that's what I was just going to check with Michael around. What kind of skill set do you think people need to have in order to come to this workshop?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is if you are confident with the essential skills of painting. So the content that we cover, and this is actually we've been pretty deliberate with this. If you notice, Dean's workshops are running that particular one in the afternoon.
Yes.
On Saturday. So if you wanted to, you could actually go to, say, Intro to Citadel and then come to this one afterwards, because you want to have those intermediary skills and be confident in those. So how to base coat, how to shade, and how to layer. Mm-hmm. Because what this actually is Dean's been inspired by the Foundations of Excellence sort of seminars that they run in Warhammer World. Yes. And he's taken that and sculpted it for specific needs of our community here. And so this is designed for those people who know how to paint consistently and neatly. What do we do next? How do you really increase your painting skills? This is for anybody who just wants to enjoy painting and improve their skills, and that sort of lifelong learning idea that our hobby is so wonderful for. And it's also for those people who go, you know what, I do want to try that competition. I do want to try Best in the West, or my local store painting club, or the OBSEC painting competition at next year's event for SHO. So it is for definitely after you've got your basic skills, we move on from there. Mm-hmm. It's understanding really what makes excellence in painting and how you achieve that. We actually show you how to do that.
But you don't have to have been a finalist in Best in the West in order to come to this.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, this is actually a bit of a passion project for Dean as well, because we all are, the whole team. One of the best things about Best in the West this year was we had so many people involved. We want to increase that exponentially forever. Yeah. And this is part of that is if you've not entered before and you want to know if your skill level can increase, it absolutely can. Yeah. This is for you. If you've been painting really well for years and years and you want to know what's next in your hobby journey, this is also for you as well. And
so Best in the West is obviously the painting competition that's run by Games Workshop. And honestly, just to completely go off on a tangent, but the number of entries and the level of painting skills that were displayed this year were just phenomenal. And
well last year I was in the final. I was
judging
part of in the Perth store for the finals, and the standard and quantity for this year's finals were just amazing.
Yeah.
So,
and
it's fantastic.
We really have seen that grow significantly, and it's, I guess now there's been a few groups that have started up here around painting, miniature painting in Western Australia, and seeing the number of people who are really becoming passionate about improving their painting skills. It's fantastic to see. So I think Best in the West is only going to get bigger and bigger, and offering things like this is fantastic.
Well, the other thing about this workshop as well to bear in mind is that this Dean's workshops are specifically limited in space.
Yes, they are.
Because these are much more intimate and personalised per person, I suppose. It gives Dean the chance to work with you much more closely one-on-one. Is it 8 or is it 10 that we've cut?
Eight people, I
Eight.
believe, was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dean spoke about the fact that he wanted to make sure, like you say, he wanted to make sure that not only is he teaching everyone in the room the full breadth of what we've got to offer, but also making sure he can go to the individual and make sure that they're
Give them that
understanding it
one-on-one
and
time.
modifying the learning for them. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you've ever wanted to literally learn from a Golden Demon winner,
Getting quick because
these tickets have Dean's run. This is the third year that he's run workshops, and each time they've sold out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any available at the time of recording. Who knows?
at the time of the recording, I know that there are still a couple left. So
Okay.
yeah.
So if you are interested in going and really pushing yourself, these are 3.5-hour workshops with Dean, so you do get the whole afternoon with him. And from what I understand, he's also going to have sample miniatures and displays and stuff that he's done.
Absolutely.
And the price difference, I will just say, doesn't in any way reflect the skill set of the team member who is running these. So we're not saying that Dean is a better teacher or has a higher skill set, therefore we're charging more.
No, it's actually to do with the
It's
materials.
to do with the materials that are coming along. So
Because you are getting an artificer brush in this workshop, aren't you, from memory?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're getting the best tools to produce the best job. That's what it is. So that's why, obviously, that's different. So whereas your intro to Citadel, this is actually an interesting thing. If you go through the various different workshops, if you can schedule it with whatever else people wanted to do within Ossecho, because there is so much to do, obviously, it's fantastic because you'll be walking away with almost a full set of brushes if you do everything.
If you do the right ones.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
not to mention a huge breadth of knowledge. So
And look,
Which is the most important part.
and if you do a whole bunch of these, you're going to walk out with paints and miniatures and all sorts of stuff. The next one's actually one that I probably should go and do. But given we have access to the teachers, I might do it after show because I don't think I'll be allowed to do it during.
no, you won't. You're busy.
So this is the painting scenery workshop, Grim Ruins, which is held on Sunday mornings. This is basically all about how to paint terrain.
That's it. Absolutely.
weathering and dry brushing and all that sort of stuff. If I'm right.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It's actually, I spoke to Ghislaine about this one, and we were coming up with ways to make sure that we are including the same skill sets that we taught last year in a new way, but also providing something different as well. So those people that have come to previous Southern Hemisphere Opens can come to these workshops. And one of the biggest ones with terrain is this is actually where not only are we teaching you how to paint terrain, getting a fantastic look and giving the skills to make an amazing table at home, or really and truly Armies on Parade ties in really nicely to a display board for a tournament. And I know walking around, I think it was one of the Objective Secure tournaments I went to last year. So fantastic seeing all those display boards, and I'd love to see more of those. So we have that aspect, but also it's dry brushing.
Yeah, which
dry brushing is
transferable skill.
Huge. Yeah, exactly.
Well, the other good thing about this, when you do start talking about weathering techniques as well, again, it's an opportunity for you to take some techniques, try them out on terrain, and then maybe apply them to your vehicles or to your monsters and those sorts of things. Again, transferring them across different aspects of your hobby, not just focusing on your terrain. So, and like you say, dry brushing is a huge part of the hobby, and it's amazing how many people, when you say, "Can you dry brush?" they go, "Oh yeah," and they have no idea what you're talking about.
I had no idea how to dry brush. It took me. I can't remember what event it was before, but yeah, you were like, "Oh, just dry brush it." Yeah, I've never done that before. So you and Richard were trying to teach me how to dry brush. We started with a lot of wet brushing.
Yes.
That's it. And the other thing about dry brushing, and this is a really important one, is like you say, not only is it a transferable skill, but dry brushing is important because it is easy to learn, but very hard to master.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to approach it, and also there is no limit to what you can achieve with different effects, and it's important to understand dry brushing is just as important as the other essential skills and advanced skills that you'll learn. And so Ghislaine's really just using this. Not only do you get painted terrain when you're done, and the tools to produce that as well, so to take that home and put on your gaming tables or your next display board, but that knowledge of how to apply it in different situations. I'm really excited to see what those hobbyists that get involved in that workshop can produce afterwards, because it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be really exciting.
Also,
Dry brushing's a weird one.
dry brushing is a weird one.
Well, what I mean by that, again, for older hobbyists like me, dry brushing was, it was the way you highlighted. when you were reading White Dwarf and you had no one firsthand to actually teach you. The lessons that I had in person were done at a local gaming store. Ironically, you might even know this name, Mike. Laurie
Goodwin?
Goodridge. Laurie.
Isn't it Laurie Goodwin?
No, Goodridge, I want to say.
Okay.
He ended up at,
that name rings a bell.
He ended up at Games Workshop head office here in Australia. And he won silvers and bronzes, and I can't say for certain golds, but I know he was very competitive when we had Golden Demon here in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one who taught me the basics of painting when he worked at a local gaming store when he was like 17 or 18 years old. And I didn't listen to him clearly because I'm nowhere near as good as he was at the time.
I know, it just might be that you don't have the skill set.
Thanks. Really appreciate that support. But at the time, obviously, you're reading stuff and then trying to learn from it and understand what dry brushing means without having that first-hand experience. And it's really easy to not get it unless it's shown to you firsthand. And
and there's a big difference as well between seeing it in a book, or now obviously we have the ability to see it on YouTube, but actually having someone in front of you taking you through it and making suggestions on how to change how you're holding the brush or something like that.
Just even picking the right paintbrush to use these days is a big thing because there's such a much better variety of brushes, but also the consistency of the paint, the new paint, the dry paints that are available from different companies, obviously Games Workshop included. There's a whole bunch of opportunities there to really get more out of dry brushing than simply smashing out like a base dry brush over an entire model and then being quite lazy with it. You can actually be quite refined and detailed with it, and it's not a technique that's a lazy technique. It's a technique that can be used really carefully in a really refined manner to get really amazing results. And if you can even get a little bit out of that sort of stuff out of this workshop, then you probably gotten more for your hobby than you might have thought.
You might realise,
Yeah, that's it. And that's the biggest thing I'll stress about all these workshops is the core of this idea that Rai established was that we wanted to provide the same interactive learning that we have in our stores, but at these workshops with a higher level and more focus, and the ability to, like you say, Emma, like it's different to seeing it in a book. You need that, having that person go, here's how you do it, show me that you can do it, and let's work on what you're doing right there. That interactive element is so important. It's one of the best things you're going to walk away with.
Yeah. Also, I don't think that terrain can be underestimated for what it adds, value adds to a game.
Yeah.
And I think often it is underestimated. And, the difference between playing on a table that is filled with pretzel cans and Jats packets that are, not even painted but still have the crimpy chicken on the front, and that's not Jats, but you know what I mean. Like the difference
I love the fact you're not naming names so we can't get in trouble for this. It's great. Just keep doing that.
So I think there's a big difference between playing with that and what it adds to it by actually having terrain on the table and knowing how to paint that and having that looking good, and whether that's you're a narrative player or a competitive player or however you describe your playing style, terrain does make a difference.
Well, the other thing terrain for me has always been a chore.
Yes,
and
I've noticed that.
But it's also been a psychological barrier of it's too much work and not understanding how to engage, because when you start talking about building some of the new Citadel 40k Ruin sets, the Sector Imperialis sets, those can be really big buildings. And all of a sudden, you have a hobbyist who's used to painting a 28mm to 32mm scale infantryman, maybe something bigger like a Rhino or a Land Raider or that sort of stuff. And then you get this building that's 9 inches tall and 12 inches wide and 6 inches deep, and they look at it and go, I don't even know how to start that, because there's all this detail all over it and there's all this intricacy in it, and in some cases it's going to be more detailed than some of the older kits that you can still buy.
Yeah.
And I think being able to go into this sort of workshop and understand how to break it down and engage it so that you can get a good result that's not going to take you millennia to complete is something that a lot of hobbyists could really benefit from, because me included, because it's...
We've already established you're too busy. Does this actually take you through building the terrain as well?
So for the purposes to make sure we really focus on getting the dry brush specifically done well, we are going to have it pre-built and primed so it's ready to go, so Delane can teach everyone effectively. However, if people do want to talk about building skills, just please come and chat with the staff that we have at the booth. We'll be rotating through our staff, and all of us have built for the store and for our own collections as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, you're 100% correct, Mike. Like, that barrier is big for some people, and we want to use this to break that down. So if you've got any questions, come over, pop to see us in the stores to build it. And after you've got these skill sets, the building part, when that's done, the fun of the painting sort of kicks off. And so any questions, please come and see us at the booth, and we're more than happy to go through it.
I might be coming over to see it because I actually quite enjoy painting terrain, but I can never paint terrain because Mike won't build it for me. And I am banned from using super glue.
Yes, you're
it's
not
a
allowed to use super glue.
self-imposed ban because I do often glue my fingers either
To
to
whatever
my
it
other
is.
fingers or my forehead or whatever piece of plastic I'm holding.
I wish she was joking.
Yeah. But these ones use plastic glue, don't they?
They do, yes. A lot of the terrain Games Workshop's making now, and all this. It's actually interesting. You guys do mention how much better it makes the games, and obviously Games Workshop has really recognised that because the amount of terrain that's coming out. So definitely all plastic for this one. So any of the other things that we'll be selling at the booth, you'll be able to pick up and then grab some terrain yourself and then get started. So it's really easy to work with.
We'll move on now. I want to talk about Dean's other workshop now, which is the freehand workshop that's happening on Monday afternoon. Another 3.5 hour long one, and another very limited spots workshop to really focus on what Dean does best. This is all about freehand.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is one of the biggest things, is that a lot of the conversations we have in store when somebody wants to make a miniature personal and make a collection personal, freehand always comes up. And also, a lot of the time, if somebody's got really good painting skills, they've worked through their basics, they've even gone through those intermediary stages and are layering consistently, picking out details, making things neat. The next step from there is freehand, and it's something that a lot of us, I think, that start at Warhammer 40,000 are going to be quite familiar with. You see those Space Marine shoulder pads and Chaos Space Principles and Eldar, sort of Thorn work. And for those people that start with Age of Sigmar as well, there's so many amazing patterns you can do, and just
I like
the breadth
tattoos
of...
on the a lot of the Chaos range, the blood. I always get the names of Blood Reavers. Blood Reavers.
So you got Blood Reavers and tattoos, and that's it, exactly. And even to my own collection, obviously, like with Middle Earth Games, I've certainly wanted to try and bring out as many of the sort of elven scroll work, or much more importantly, dwarven runes as possible. And that's what this is about. This is about what goes into making freehand successful. It's about the planning and the execution. So you'll be working through the steps of that with Dean, and he'll have examples of his freehand work. And if you haven't seen them before, you really are in for a treat, because every time he brings them in store, when he covers for myself, it's just a joy to look at. He's done some amazing things, and he's going to be giving you those skills. So this is a really, really fantastic workshop. I'm so pleased that we've actually got freehand involved, because I feel it's one of those big ones that people tend to really put the barriers up to. They're like, oh,
Definitely
I really want to
shy
do
away
it,
from
but
that one.
so
Yeah,
tough. Yeah. And we're just going to really break all those barriers down and give you all the skills, and make sure that when you walk away from this workshop, you've got the tools you need to repeat what Dean teaches you, but more importantly, you can approach other freehand projects, and your miniatures are just going to be entirely unique to you. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think it. Again, don't compare your work to Dean's.
No, that's a risk.
Because
good point.
His freehand detail is beyond impeccable. Like, it is jaw-dropping.
Well, there's a reason you got a gold for that squad. They are really immaculate. I suppose the other thing to mention with this one is because you do have such a smaller class, you can be much more focused on what you want to learn. So, say, for example, you are focusing on Dwarven runes or maybe Celtic rune work and not work on Space Wolves. Yes, I am pandering to our guest.
Good.
Nice work.
If you've got some stuff that you want to bring in to kind of show Dean that you're, potentially look at what you can improve on, because you do have a smaller class. Obviously, the focus of the class is teaching you techniques, but there's nothing stopping you when he comes and sees you to sort of go, this is where I'm at the moment. This is what I want to work on. It's an advantage that you do have, that you can really get one-on-one time with him to focus on the freehand skills that you're trying to develop.
And
yeah, that's it, exactly.
And Dean he's an absolutely fantastic teacher, and he's a really, really lovely guy. So I don't want people to feel intimidated going into a workshop with a Golden Demon winner who's comes with all these accolades and whose painting is phenomenal. Like, he is so down to earth and he's so lovely and so completely unassuming, but so talented and so happy to share that knowledge and skill with anybody who will sit still and listen for more than 5 minutes.
Well, he also was the one who gave you your first Kill Team demo game.
He did.
Ah, fantastic.
At the Joondalup store, no less.
That's
Yeah.
right. I remember that. There was a thing that happened.
Yep.
But yeah, that's it. No, Dean is. It's absolutely spot on what you're saying, Emma. Dean is fantastic. He is. The best thing about him is that all he wants to achieve is the goals set for other people in their painting.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. That's what he's passionate about, and it's so much fun having him in my store when he pops in to say hello. And you can just see it for the person who's new to painting and has got something right. If it could be painting a Space Marine eye or just base coating, he's as excited about that as he is the person who comes in and goes, by the way, I've overnight I absolutely managed to paint, I don't know, the Emperor himself on a perfect banner, and everything's done amazingly, and it's fantastic. Like, he's invested in every experience for painting and improving all of it as well. So
yeah, and I think I will just point out that Ghislaine is, and actually everyone who's running workshops are just fantastic. I assume that people have more experience with Ghislaine because she works so often at Morley. So therefore I just
Not
assume,
anymore, sadly.
I know.
She's
But
now
therefore I
got
just assume that everybody knows how passionate and excited and exciting and fabulous she is. But I sort of, Dean is so much quieter. Not that I'm suggesting that Ghislaine is loud, but you know what I mean? So Ghislaine is also...
that's it.
I'm sure there was
Absolutely.
I'm sure there was a goal there for that sentence.
There was, yeah. I had to start with a
look,
goal. I
that's
lost it.
the thing is, you are right in the fact that one of the things with Ghislaine is that she's very, very good at teaching, and she's very quick to know how you need to teach. So both of them have that skill set. So that interactive element I keep talking about, that's why these guys are doing these workshops, is because they can achieve that. And with Ghislaine, like, it would be so funny because I'd sort of pop in to Morley, or I'd be talking to her, organizing something for the stores, and she'd say, oh, I'm working on this for the moment, or painting up this model. And you go, oh, okay, and then the next week it's done.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's brilliant. You're going, oh, excellent, I'll just take my sort of half-finished Space Wolf and wander off. But the thing is, she's so good that all the models that you've got, Dean as well, Stuart, Shane, you are right. And I think it's so important to stress that these guys are fantastic people, and the reason they do what they do is because they are passionate about teaching, and they also are very good at it, and they're just excited to meet everyone and to improve everyone's skills.
And so excited to share what they are so passionate about with everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, that's it.
Yeah.
And you've just given me a fantastic segue, so I'm going to jump on it.
Beautiful.
And we're going to talk about Shane's workshop, which is the last one, which is a new... We haven't done anything like this at show before, so it's a really exciting workshop to add to the roster to see particularly how the community's engagement is for it. So it's conversion and sculpting with green stuff. So this is happening Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon.
Sunday all day.
Yeah. So there's 4
Shane
workshops.
is just literally not stopping. He's just doing workshop. And
we are
banging
giving
them
him
out.
a couple of breaks in between the workshops.
He's got 15 minutes.
Well,
He's an iron hand. It's what they do. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's got half an hour in the morning and then an hour for lunch and then a half hour in the afternoon. He gets some breaks.
Yeah, you're generous.
That's
He's
it.
got to reset in that time.
Oh, he does have to reset in that time. So this is talking specifically about sculpting.
Yeah, and
And-
I think that this is probably the thing that I hear the most about next to freehand detail is the green stuff work, and specifically the work that Shane does on the models that he converts.
Yeah, he's between his Tyranids and his Iron Hands that I see a lot of, or have seen over the years, I should say. He's done some fantastic conversions in that time, and as the kits are getting more detailed, obviously understanding how you can repair any damages that you might have inflicted on them when converting them, or how to make those conversions more seamless. Is
to create a whole new head.
Yeah,
for a model.
that's
Probably that won't be covered.
Probably
in the
not.
Hour and 45 minutes.
So this is talking about sculpting wires, cables, cloth, fur, chainmail, and filling gaps as well. Am I right in saying this also includes liquid green stuff, or is this purely aimed at solid green stuff?
So this one here is mainly aimed at solid green stuff. So liquid green stuff is an amazing product, and it is designed to assist the skills you'll develop through regular green stuff.
Okay.
So we want to make sure people learn It's kind of like, think about it, learning like manual versus automatic with a car. It's you want to get those essential skills with the original green stuff, because that is the best way to fix any gap. Because there's obviously going to be some areas on a miniature sometimes where the gap's a bit too big for liquid green stuff or things of that nature, and so we want to make sure you've got that essential skill.
It's a great one if you're buying a Titan and you need to know how to fill the gaps in any of the bigger kits.
That's it. If you're like myself and you need 9 kill because it's not accurate without it, how do you make sure that they're all unique and all the gaps are filled? And so we've actually got Intercessor Space Marines that we're deliberately leaving some gaps in. So we're going to be able to show you how to fill that in. So
Perfect.
yeah, so we've got that, and then obviously what's actually going to happen is Shane's going to teach you how to use green stuff, working through a series of different details on the actual Space Marine itself. So you'll learn how to sculpt a particular detail, and he'll take you through the preparation, how to use it, why do we need water, what do we actually use the tools for, what understanding and knowledge do you need before you apply green stuff to the miniature, and then after that, during sculpting, do you just leave it and wander off? Do you have to do multiple layers? All that sort of those important educational needs for green stuff. He's going to be teaching you, double checking that you've got it right, helping you out if you need a bit of guidance. And at the end of this workshop, this is the reason I'm so excited about this one, is so many people, especially hobbyists that have been around for a while, often go, green stuff, it's on the shelf, I've seen it. It's there.
I probably own some somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably own some somewhere, exactly. How do I use that? And I'm really excited for this one because if you get the basics of green stuff, I myself have found, even using some of the more easy to build models from our, like the Soul Wars box, I converted up a Stormcast army that I'm really quite happy with. And it's very, very simple green stuff elements, but it's important skill sets to learn, because it, again, like the freehand, green stuff gives you two things. It means your models, most importantly, are prepared correctly. Mm-hmm. And also, it's about making your models unique to you.
Yeah.
So if you see a vision for them, how do you achieve that? And green stuff sometimes is a massive part of that. So it just gives you another tool to use to make sure your miniature collection is unique to yourself and it's what you want to achieve as well.
And the workshops are, and again, the people who attend these workshops are actually going to be followed up in store. You're going to have an opportunity to head into your local Games Workshop or Warhammer store to continue some of this learning as well.
Absolutely. We're going to be doing specific invites for everybody that comes along to these workshops. And the idea is that when you sit down with Shane and he teaches you your absolute essentials for preparing, looking after, and setting green stuff, this does include times to dry and how to store your green stuff and all those important bits of information. Mm-hmm. You're getting an invitation to come to any of the stores in Western Australia, and you can come to our stores, and any of our team members are going to be able to talk you through how to specifically use those skills for the project you imagine. So for instance, let's say Shane takes you through sculpting fur on the Intercessor, because naturally it needs to be a space wolf, can't have any other way.
I would have said scales on a salamander, but okay, I'll give you.
Scales on a salamander, even. Yes, we can go to variants if we must, but no, it's let's say Shane teaches us that skill set. Great. What's next? Well, if you have a vision in your mind for a certain type of cloak, detail, whatever it could be, that's when you come to the store and you go, right, Shane taught me how to do the essential skills and convert the essential skills of converting. I need you to show me how to achieve this, and that's where we really sit down and customize it to yourself. But this is going to give you that first step, which is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it should be pointed out with that there will be some caveats on the on walking into a store at any given moment to try and get those extra skills. So it is something that we'll cover in the workshop, but by and large, it is an open invitation to the stores at any time. But obviously, if you've got a specific thing you'd love to learn from Shane specifically, you'll obviously have to head to the store that he manages out in Morley.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go and learn how to paint,
suggest going on a day that he works.
And that's kind of what I was hinting at. Is it's if you've got a particular staff member that you want to see, it's obviously worth calling any of the stores or sending them a Facebook message or an email or however you want to get in contact with the store, so that you can make sure that the staff member in question that you want to talk to about your passion project is actually there to show you and help you, because there'd be nothing worse than you live in Rockingham or Mandurah and you drive all the way to Morley to talk to Shane about sculpting Space Wolves, and he's not there. So
exactly. And that's the thing as well. On the invite, we will have all the stores information and everywhere to contact them, so you can actually, if you want to, know that you're coming in for a specific thing at a specific time as well. You can book with us, and we can definitely organise that with you. So
Yeah.
But it's really cool because we haven't seen this sort of workshop before.
No, it's really exciting to have new things happening this year.
And again, there's a lot of people like myself who've been doing this a long time, but never got any sort of... It was the product when it was first released, and it's going to sound really odd for some of our listeners. Green Stuff first came out in Australia, you had to be 18 to buy it.
Yeah,
because it hadn't cleared the non-toxic kind of... so the first packaging that it came in was like spray paint is today. It was.
I actually didn't know that it was that wasn't still a regulation on it.
No, it's not. It's basically non-toxic in terms. Like obviously you don't want to eat the thing, but no, like when it first came over, the stores were instructed to tell people who were buying it they had to be over 18, and you had to wear gloves and all sorts of stuff. And so we never actually got any sort of, apart from reading White Dwarf or something similar online, we had never been given any instruction for it and how to use it. So a lot of people are self-taught. So having the opportunity to come and do, they're like an hour and 45-minute workshops.
Yeah.
Come and sit down for a couple of hours.
Plenty of time, so plenty of time to learn those skills. And like you say, it's a really big one. Is that there's a lot of mysteries around green stuff, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about how to use it. And so, sort of busting through those myths and teaching the exact way is a huge part. It's as I say, with all these workshops, it's really exciting, and we wanted to provide a building and converting element this year, and so we'll have to plan some more for future. So
now I will just add that at the time that we put these workshops out, I did put a little asterisk on the information sheet and said that the resources that attendees received may vary depending on the availability of the resources. The intention had been that the attendees would receive the Citadel sculpting toolset, but as they are no longer available, that is no longer an option. So we're working on making sure that there's still not only value for money in the skills that you'll learn from Shane, but also in products as well.
Yeah. So
that's it. So the biggest thing at the moment, I believe, was the gift voucher, potentially, and whatever else we suss out. The biggest thing is with this is that, as you said before about everyone else, Shane is equal in the fact that his knowledge and skill sets are superb. He is a bit of a hobby monster. He smashes out so many amazing projects.
Yeah.
It's being able to sit with him and get this one-on-one and then the group understanding of how you work through green stuff. It's just invaluable. It's going to be fantastic.
And he's such a teddy bear. Like he certainly doesn't look like a teddy bear, but he really is personality-wise, isn't he? Like
he's a
lovely man.
Yeah.
He's a lovely man.
He is so lovely, and he gets so excited about all of the Games Workshop staff. I think when I'm thinking about all of the WA Games Workshop staff, and I guess the ones that we met over the weekend as well from Queensland, personality-wise, they are all so different. But the one thing that everybody has in common is that complete passion for sharing this love for hobby and any miniatures, not just the Games Workshop games, but sharing that with literally everybody.
Yeah.
That's it, absolutely.
We are very fortunate here in Western Australia to have 5 really dedicated stores with passionate hobbyists in each one of them.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like anybody is just there because it's their job.
No. And I think that's obviously... we were fortunate when we were talking to Dom from the Warhammer community, talking about hobby versus work, because obviously... And he was explaining to us the difference in how he treats his hobby compared to how he treats his job. And... that's probably another conversation for another day, but we are fortunate. The guys like Shane, who live and breathe the hobby, do so passionately. He will share that information so willingly with anyone. And I've never had an experience with any of the stores at the moment that has been negative. Like all the staff have been more than happy to listen to me grump or offer me advice or suggest
or celebrate with you, commiserate with you, cry when you broke the Titan.
When I went into actually this receipt that's sat here is actually from Joondalup.
Marvelous.
Looking for the technical paints to do a commission job that I went in and said to Michael, okay, this is what I want to do, what do I need? And that might sound really strange for me to go in and ask someone.
Especially since you're getting paid to do this.
No. What I mean is there's so many new, like this is one of the technical paints that I've not used before.
Yeah.
So I sought advice because I know how to use the paints and I know how to use the medium I'm using, but what color best gets me that result that I'm trying to achieve? And I can do it the long way and I can do it the old way because I've got those colors. But the client in question wanted the most recent up-to-date color scheme.
Yeah.
And it gave me an opportunity to learn something on the spot because I could go. I was confident going in and going, how do I do? This is what I'm looking to achieve. I know how I would do it normally.
What suggestions? How can I improve this?
What's the opportunity here for me to make it better? So, it's a really, really great opportunity to get some close one-on-one time with some of these fabulous hobbyists. And we should also point out with the game, with the green stuff one, they are smaller classes as well.
So that's why one of the reasons we're obviously providing more is to make sure that we've got Shane definitely locked in for the whole day. Like I said, Emma, it's because we want to make sure as many people can get in as possible, and we're still ensuring that quality by having those smaller groups as well.
Yeah.
There are no workshops that are being run with large groups.
No.
So
when I say like large groups, I'm talking. I think the intro one has the biggest space. Is that 12?
Yep. I think it was 10 to 12 potentially, and that's one of the things as well. Is obviously with the 6 sessions, people can have their pick really of when's best. Obviously moving quickly because they, as you said, they are super popular.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. And
I had a
as you guys
hobbyist
say,
before we started recording this. He sent me a message going, "Well, I've just spent $230 on workshop tickets."
Oh, awesome!
Excellent.
So I have no idea what he's ordered, but he sent me a message going, "Well, that's my Saturday and Sunday booked." So
Perfect.
awesome. No, he's going to be getting some fantastic skills.
yeah. And the funny thing is, he's even managed one of the tournaments that we're running has kind of a drop-in, drop-out mechanic. So he's actually going to be playing a tournament and then dropping out for part of the tournament to go and do a workshop to then go back and play another game.
So, I have a lot of respect for that. That's fantastic.
Because he's so keen to go and do some of these workshops that he's gone, how can I make this work? I want to play the games, but I also want to do this. I'm going to do both, and it's the game he's picked in particular means that
actually the only one.
It's the only one that allows it.
Yep.
Which is our Horus Heresy games. He's actually managed to time himself so that he's booking time to play games, and then he's gone, right, I've got an afternoon workshop from 2 till 5, so I'm not going to play for the afternoon. I'm going to go and do my workshops.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
So I think that there are a lot of people who will be coming to this event who know Stu and Shane and Guylaine and Dean, and coming to a workshop run by them is really exciting because they've known them for a long time and they know how lovely they are. But I think that for people who are either new to the hobby or new to WA or somewhat insulated from, I guess, those amazing people, they might be feeling a little bit intimidated about coming to some of these events. What kind of message would you share with them?
So one thing you spoke about before is that you guys are comfortable walking into any of our stores. And the reason we're actually, Rye spearheaded working with you guys so closely is not only because of the amazing work you've done to build up and elevate our community, but it's also because we know working in our stores that the community does not end at our store door. It is massive and far-reaching, and these people are exemplars of our hobby, because the core of our hobby is a social experience where we all get to benefit from enjoying it together. And the individual experience of that is pursuing it for the sake and joy of this fantastic hobby. And what they're going to do is, by providing these skills, they're not waiting for you to come in, make your mistakes so they can, tear you apart for it and march off to the commissar. It's nothing like that.
No.
They're so excited to meet everybody and really see at the end of this, and they will be helping you improve those skills. They're seeing the end results. So I would say that, this is an extension of our desire to improve our community, and these particular people are not only really, really excited for this as well, but they are very, very aware of how lucky we are to have such a fantastic community to work with. So it's a joint learning venture for all of us, really. So there's no expectations set. It's come on in, sit down and just really enjoy every single moment of that learning and get excited for what comes afterwards.
And if someone wants to come and see you, you're going to be at the show for a good chunk of it. I know, obviously, with staffing being a thing that still has the stores still have to be manned.
Yeah, but he's running 2 events for us.
Yeah, I know.
So he has to be there. But before I get to that, do you mind if I just quickly jump in?
Sure.
So you said before as well, Michael, that the staff who are running these workshops will actually also be there when they're not running workshops at times as well?
So Shane's there for the Sunday.
Yep.
Ghislaine and Dean are actually running the booth and also running demo pods, because we've got some examples of how to use different tools and products that we actually have, and we're going to teach people how to do those at our pod, like little 15 to 20 minute demos.
Yep.
So they'll be there as well, and they'll obviously be running introductory activity for anybody that wants to try their hand at the Warhammer hobby. We're going to be presenting that as well, and Stuart will be the only one, I believe, who will be flat out for the full 3 days. So he's obviously running the full. He'll be locked upstairs and working away. But Ghislaine and Dean will be available, and I've no doubt that Shane will be more than happy for a chat in between sessions as well at the booth. And we'll have, I believe, almost the entirety of our WA State team actually working at the booth across 3 days, which is fantastic.
I guess what I'm thinking is that if people are feeling a little bit uncomfortable, they don't necessarily know other people who are doing the workshop, or they're feeling uncomfortable walking into that workshop, there's opportunity there for them to meet the instructor prior to actually going into the workshop.
Well, we certainly be getting all the attendees to the workshop to meet at the Games Workshop booth prior to the workshop anyway. So showing up a few minutes early to give yourself the opportunity to meet the instructor and have a quick conversation and get
or
yourself...
if you're doing a workshop on a Sunday,
meet them on the Saturday,
that kind of thing could potentially help. And also there is the painting panels that will be happening.
And
yes,
the other opportunity you've got is things like, say, for example, you do Bringing Minis to Life on the Saturday afternoon. Dean will still be around periodically throughout the rest of the weekend. So if you finish that workshop with Dean and then go home that night and try something and then bring it in the next day, there's every opportunity potentially to grab him for 5 minutes and go, here's what I did, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, and grab another pointer from him. The whole, the access to these wonderful people isn't limited to your workshop. Obviously, you have to bear in mind their own availability and their own schedules, but if you see them at the booth and you've done one of their workshops and you want some more advice,
or you just want to show off what you've done,
go and say hi and engage.
Please do, and come and show the rest of us as well, because we would all love to see what you guys get up to and sort of discuss the excitement that comes after you go, right, I now know what I can do. I have all these ideas. I need to discuss what I'm going to do next, and we want to be a part of that as well. So
that is true. I have never met a Games Workshop staff member who has gone, you know what, I see you're excited about that, but I'm not interested in hearing it. I've met a Games Workshop staff member when I've been trying to leave and get Michael out the door, and it has then gone on for another hour as they bounce ideas backwards and forwards, but I've never had anyone shut him down yet.
Oh, the only time I've been shut down is when I start talking Eldar with Shane.
Well, look, at the end of the day, you play Eldar, mate. I mean, I can't help. That's what it's
and like I said, if you want to go and say hello to Mike at Southern Hemisphere Open 2019, Michael will be running tournaments and back and forth from the booth.
Age of Sigmar narrative and the Warhammer 40,000 narrative, which were both so really well received last year with the and if you weren't part of those narrative events last year, when I first... Sorry, I'm going to go back and tell a little bit of a story.
Of course.
When I first met Michael from Joondalup, not Michael that I'm married to. When I first met Michael from Joondalup...
This isn't confusing.
I thought he was so incredibly quiet. And completely... And a total introvert. And I was thinking oh, okay, wow. And then... the more I've got to know you, Michael, I'm sensing that that's probably not an accurate...
Yeah, it must have been a day where I was really having to do a lot of maths, because that's the only time I really go quiet.
Do you know what it was, actually? You were doing stock take.
There you go. That's exactly what it would be.
Well, the last time you saw us, it was Emma from across the room, arms in the air.
That exact experience of when I went into Joondalup last time and jumped 5 feet backwards as this big booming voice of Emma came out. that was exactly what I experienced of you at show last year when you were doing the narrative, was just this whole engaging performance of telling the narrative story pre and post games. So it was a really, I guess, whole of body kind of experience for that game system, which is not something that I've experienced for competitive games. It's certainly not how we run our events normally.
No, but I think that comes down to what you want to take away from your games and your experiences at the table. And for some people, it is the competitive side of things. And Mike and I have met across the table at competitive tournaments in the past. I remember him bringing an entirely foot-slogging, I want to say it was Space Marines, but it probably wasn't.
Ultramarines second company.
Oh, that was, you're right. And at the time, I had it was an army that I was prepping for ETC in 2012, so it was my super hardcore Dark Eldar Drakari fleet of death. And
that was on the ice table.
Yes, at Skulls.
Yes. Yeah, at Skulls, yeah, that was brilliant.
That was actually the start of 2012, because that was straight after that tournament I got invited to the team. And that game was, without being disrespectful to Michael, very one-sided.
That's it. I absolutely beat Mike, but I was actually distracted. But the best part was it was such a fun game though, because every small victory that I got when a grenade would fly off and glance a land raider because of all the Dark Elder land raiders, the venoms and so forth, was fantastic. I do remember it. The best part was that army was an example to myself of proving a point where somebody said you can't possibly take second company to a tournament. I went, of course I can.
Watch me.
I didn't do it very well, but I took it to the tournament, so that's the important part.
Yeah.
I've done those over the years, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, but that's the tournament experience. The games that you run at show last year, and certainly that will be very similar, I assume, this year, are about when you read those awesome stories and think, wouldn't that be cool to play it on the table?
Yeah.
And recreating that experience of narrative in your mind on the table at the same time. And walking away from it less about it being, oh, I smashed this or I did that, and more about that cool thing happened, and this is where it took the story.
That's it. And the best thing about it, and the reason I have so much fun running these, is when you play narrative. I actually love playing narrative and competitive.
Competitive challenges myself to really think about what I want to use in my army, how I'm going to deploy on the tabletop. It's that wonderful moment you have with your opponent where it's a really close game and you're both doing so well, and there's that mutual respect and appreciation for a game well played, and that is something that competitive does so well. And narrative I love, because playing both of them really just gives me better perspective and more love and appreciation for either one, because narrative completely removes the sort of more tactical or the sort of cold calculus of what you need to do to win a competitive match, where the objective is purely narrative, and you invest in that and the fun of it and whatnot. And you don't necessarily have to have somebody narrating what happens in between games, but that's one of the things that we think, I know we've discussed it amongst ourselves, is really special about these events at SHO. And what I want to provide is something unique, a unique narrative event you wouldn't get elsewhere. And also, like anything else we're doing, it's about learning how you can actually run narrative games for your friends, because a lot of people read it in the rule book and go, oh cool, it's replaying historical battles, or it's this or it's that. And there's so much to it. It's an open book, literally, that you get to fill in the pages. So hopefully we'll be providing some learning. But also, I'm really excited for this year. It's a doubles event as well, obviously. So lots of opportunities, some really thematic armies, and some bitter rivalries, and some great stories as well, which is the main thing.
And if you've got any questions about running narrative games, they can also come and pick your brains across the weekend as well if they spot you. And
please do. On the Sunday, I'm going to be at the booth all day. So if you want to come and talk to me about narrative then, just don't get too worried if the gleam in my eyes becomes slightly mad like everybody else. It's just excitement.
It's not a dwarf looking at gold.
No, that's it.
And the last thing, which I did briefly touch on, is there will be panels each day. Instead of having a lunch break, Gillian, Dean, and I believe Stu are going to be doing Q&A sessions on painting.
Absolutely, that's it. And these were always something that I've got from SHO, I've actually managed to sneak into a writer's one, I think in the first year,
Yep.
which was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so, I'm really excited. I know that Ghislaine's already got some fantastic points that she wants to talk about, and it's going to be really helpful. And again, like you guys said earlier, if somebody wants to maybe come along on the Monday and the Sunday to some of our painting seminars and they want to see these guys first, and that's a great opportunity to sort of hear them speak and see that passion and that inclusivity that I'm talking about. So.
Yeah, fab.
Well, what started prior to the recording tonight was, this will be a 30 to 40 minute topic, and even taking out the little the conversation when obviously I hit record prior to actually starting the recording, I reckon we're well over an hour at this point.
Yep, definitely.
So another short episode. Good to see we're on target.
Mm-hmm.
We have to thank Michael for not only for joining us tonight on the episode, but also for all of his hard work. Emma mentioned it at the start, and I think we are very fortunate to have you working with us for Show 2019 and hopefully for future events. And these workshops wouldn't be happening without your hard work and dedication. So thank you very much for joining us tonight and for all the work that you've put in the lead up to show, and no doubt over those 3 manic days.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. Thank you again for running Southern Hemisphere Open, and I'd pass on the thanks to the rest of the WA staff team as well, because I've asked a lot of them and they've stepped up without question. So I'm really excited, and thank you for giving me a chance to chat about what we're doing. I am more pumped than ever.
Is there anything else that you want to share with people about the painting workshops before we do say goodnight for tonight?
The only thing I would say is, if you want to take the opportunity to learn, or just out of sheer curiosity see what else you could do with your miniatures,
I'd really encourage you to come along. I think anybody can get a lot out of this, and like I say, we're all excited to see what you do afterwards. So please back yourself, come along, and we're going to give you all the skill sets to move forward. So it is a very, very exciting time.
And I'll just add to that, if you could buy your tickets now, that'd be awesome. It helps us
planning.
Helps us with planning, but it also means that you're not likely to miss out on the workshop that you're looking forward to.
Which was a big problem last year we had, especially with the intro and Dean's workshops.
Yeah, so we have obviously added a lot more of the intro to Citadel workshops, but Dean is only doing 2 workshops.
Yep.
So you can get your tickets via Humanitics,
Yep,
but if you go to objectivesecured.com.au, click on the Southern Hemisphere Open link, and then there are giant green buttons everywhere that say buy tickets. Click that, go to the painting workshops, and buy them all.
There'll also be links in the show notes for the tickets, like I mentioned at the start of the segment, and I'll also make sure we've got some links to all 5 stores' Facebook pages, so you can go and check out some of the awesome hobby that happens in those stores.
Yeah, and
give those stores a like and follow.
Apart from Ghislaine, the rest of the people who are running the workshops obviously work in the stores, so pop in and say hello to them if that's going to help you feel a little bit more comfortable going to the workshops on the day.
And we should point out as well,
not that you should feel uncomfortable, just I would, because I have social anxiety.
But it's also, if you prefer to do it from the comfort of your own chair, you can check out all the different stuff that's been produced in the stores on their Facebook pages. You can also message the stores. There's obviously, being stores, they're limited hours on those Facebook pages, but the stores will always get back to you if you've got a question. So be sure to go and check them out pre and post show 2019. Michael, again, thank you so much for your time, mate. We really appreciate it. We're going to end the segment here, and Emma and I will be back in just a second to wrap up the episode. Well, despite our best efforts, this is going to be another long one.
Yeah, I think we should actually just give up.
Well, no one seems to mind when they break the hour mark. And in fact, we've had lots of people going, yeah, go 2 hours, go 3 hours. So maybe we just ignore whatever now that I've sorted the back end of the website, we can do unlimited, essentially.
We need to put an hour limit on, because you and I can both talk the hind legs off a donkey. And if we didn't have an hour limit, it would be 7 hours long.
Well, we're going to be recording an episode at show.
Yes, we are.
Which is going to be a very fluid, free-form recording, because
as opposed to the rest of our episodes.
No, what I mean is we're going to have the opportunity to have guests come and sit down with us, and It might be you with a guest, or it might be me with a guest, or it might be both of us. And then, depending on what else is going on around us at the time. And it's probably just going to be recorded as is and uploaded as is, rather than it being edited like would normally happen, where I take out some of the slips of the tongues or, any of those sort of little ums and ahs and issues that pop up. I do my best to try and get rid of those, as well as the sound levels and the sound qualities that we try and adjust. It'll be a bit more raw, that episode. I think we've still got...
because these ones are always so polished.
I reckon I do an all right job polishing them. So we've got one more before show that we've got to record. And then the week after show is live on the Wednesday night. And then the week after that will be whatever we record at show.
Right.
So it'll be episode 43, I think it'll be.
Yep.
And I don't know what the title of that episode will be yet, so I can't say.
No,
I kind of
haven't recorded it.
No. And so that'll be an interesting one. We have plenty more to get on with for show.
Yes, we do.
If you have any questions, hit us up on the Facebook page. You can follow the links to the Contact Us page on the website. And ask the questions now. Get your tickets as soon as you can. The workshops will sell out very rapidly. They did the last 2 years in a row. Dean's workshops have always sold out, and I think my gut is that that cosplay one will probably be another one that goes fairly rapidly. So, if you've got any interest in expanding your hobby skills, there's a whole swathe of things you can do over the weekend to give yourself those skills and meet the people who can give you the best opportunity to do your best work. So head on to the website and check it out. I'll make sure I've got as many links as I can possibly remember when writing the show notes, which is a lot harder than you think it is.
Well, so if it was me, and it's not going to be me because I have 9,000 other things to do today, but if it was me, as I was listening to edit this, I would actually write down every time I had said, I'll add that to the links in the show notes. I would write that down.
That's what I normally do.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's a Word document that sits in the background open, but it depends on what else I'm doing at the time. Because once I've listened through it the first time and I'm just adjusting sound quality, I don't listen to what's actually being said. So, and because obviously we recorded this episode with some Skype with Michael from Joondalup, there is some interference issues I'm going to try and rectify as best I can, but no promises there. And, I do try and get as many of the references and notes on the website with the show notes. Yeah. So,
just having a thought. So you already spoke about the fact that we're going to be doing a podcast from show, and we'll be doing a Q&A session as well, which will form part of that podcast. So who knows how long that episode's going to be. But also Mike and Piers, who have the new podcast out called As a Man, are looking for people to that they can do quick interviews or chats with that they can use for their podcast as well.
Yeah.
Which I did post about on Facebook, so you can have a look at that. Or
actually, there's a few recordings going on over that weekend.
Yes. Jacob is recording some games for his YouTube channel for historical games. So if you like historical games, then he'll be recording that. I believe Alpha Strike will be recording as well. Who have I missed? I'm not sure if Matt from Seven Land Hand will be recording or not.
What was the RPG one?
That's not being recorded, but Dungeons and Drongos are doing a live RPG game performance.
Yes.
It's the best I can.
And I'm sure there'll be cameras and stuff around for recording at least part of that, and I'm sure they'll try and share that as well. So lots of
recording that.
No, I guarantee someone will.
But
they may not, but someone will. Because that sort of thing, we've got video from last year with the some of the live action RPG stuff that happened with the kids.
Yeah, that was awesome. I am aware that we've just spoken about there's going to be a lot of recording happening at the event. My aim is that we will have a red wristbands available. So what happens when you come into show is when you show your ticket or buy your ticket at the door, although we much prefer it if you pre-purchase, just saying, you get a wristband which is colour-coded to the day. If you do not want to be included in photos or videos, then there will be a red wristband that you'll be able to get, which will have Saturday, Sunday or Monday written on it. And then basically whoever takes photos, if we happen to see that there's a red, obviously if we see you're wearing a red wristband, we won't take photos, or if we happen to notice that there's a red wristband in a photo, then that won't be used on any social media.
Yeah, every effort will be made to not publish photos with people with a red wristband. It can't be promised, because if the angle of the photo when we're going through and doing the editing doesn't show the wristband and you happen to be in it, then that may result in you being in the photo. But every effort's going to be made that if you choose to opt out of any of the photography, then we'll try and do our best to make sure that happens.
Yeah. Having said that, what I'm loving is people going and tagging themselves and sharing the photos that they're in from last year. So people being worried that they're in photos certainly hasn't been an issue for the last couple of years. They're more excited to have their photo taken rather than
absolutely
shy away from it. Yeah. Saying that, if there are any photographers who are listening to this who feel like donating any of their time to take photos and share them with us, we would love that, because otherwise it's down to me.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll actually have time this year.
Fingers crossed.
Can't promise anything.
No.
Anyway, we're done. This is, T-minus 3.5 weeks to show. We look forward to seeing you all there. You'll catch us a couple of times prior to that. But again, thank you to everyone who supported us for the Warhammer Heroes Awards, who nominated us. And we have to say a big thank you to those who donated money to the GoFundMe that Bodhi started on our behalf to help pay for some of the costs for us to go over and accept the awards in person. We really appreciate all of that support, as well as support from the patrons that we have in a similar vein, because I know plenty of those have donated money in that regard as well. So thank you very much to everyone who supports us in what we do, and we will catch you, in a week's time for the next live, but you'll no doubt hear and see more of us on the Facebook page well before next Wednesday.
Yeah, and please, if you see anything come up on Facebook advertising or promoting show or Objective Secured, like, share, invite friends to Southern Hemisphere Open, help us spread the word as much as physically possible.
And look, I mean, we're hoping, we've got some social media goals for for this year in general, which interacts with a number of different things that we can't talk about right now, but the more likes and follows and shares that we get through social media, whether it's Facebook, or YouTube or whatever, that really helps us get WA on the map, so that we hopefully will have future access to some stuff that we're just seeing Australia get access to now.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I found the Warhammer Heroes thing really exciting. Part of it was because obviously it was really humbling to have the contribution that we make be recognised by our community and, of course, by Games Workshop, but also because so much of what we see is UK, Europe and America, and we really want to highlight how much happens in gaming, and not just Games Workshop gaming, but all gaming, how much happens in Australia and how much happens in Western Australia, and do as much as we can to try and promote that, highlight it, put a spotlight on it, share it with people, sing it from the rooftops, and banners, ticker tape parade, any of that stuff.
If you've got friends who even casual gamers who maybe don't follow all the stuff that we do in the competitive circuits, then invite them to like the page. And like Emma says, anytime it gets seen or liked or shared, then that's good for our analytics, which means we can supply data to the right people, which means that hopefully the right people then reciprocate with cool stuff that we can share with the community.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're done. This is a very long episode again. It's going to be probably...
Well, stop talking then.
It's not going to be 2 hours, but it's going to be close. Thank you very much for listening. We will see you soon. And we're done.
Take care, everyone. Happy gaming.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.